All right, welcome back. Episode 59 of the Young Old Heads podcast. I'm one of your host, Tommy, aka TV Sports Cards, and I'm here with my good friend and co-host Max, aka Cards Max, aka Cards Max. I don't even know edition.
Frozen
Cards Max,
Faction?
Cards Max, Backyard Breaks is not a hoax edition. Max, how are you doing?
I feel like I just won a gold Kaboom Trevor Lawrence in a free giveaway and it's being donated to charity. That's how I'm doing.
And we're here with the gold Trevor Lawrence kaboom of hobby Twitter accounts, runners, man who needs no introduction, but I will give him one anyway. Eric Whiteback at Eric Whiteback / the collectibles guru on Twitter. I don't know. I don't use other social medias too much, Eric. You can tell people where to follow you on other places, but appreciate you coming on the show. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Yeah, this is it's been a long time coming. I'm excited to be here. And man, the gold kaboom of Twitter accounts, the gold kaboom Trevor Lawrence of Twitter accounts. I'm like not sure if that's a compliment or what that is. I'm trying to piece that together right now.
I think it's up to I think that's the perfect analogy that it's entirely what the listener interprets it as, especially if they don't know the lore behind that. It's like, yeah, why would a gold Kaboom Trevor Lawrence be a negative?
Hey, I don't know if you follow Eric, you know that certain cards drop in price significantly on a very short timeline sometimes. You if you have a Twitter account, me and Max are the unofficial podcast of Hobby Twitter, as we like to say.
Love it.
You've definitely seen Eric's tweets. He's always, going viral with some capacity.
Whether you like it or not, you're going to see his tweets.
Yeah, whether you like it or not, whether you mute him or not, with the changes going on at Twitter /X or whatever, it's always a good time. But Eric, we like to give everyone who's on the podcast an opportunity to kind of give their collecting story, ending with how you got to where you are now. Give the people the background that they want to know.
Yeah, totally. I can definitely get into that. I'll try not to go too long here, but basically my introduction to collecting is I was 4 years old and was going to the All-Star Fan Fest. My dad worked at Hershey Foods. They were a sponsor of the MLB. So, I'm like the 4-year-old kid walking around Fan Fest with a sponsor badge, and I was just like getting handed free packs and stuff. And it was like my first real introduction to sports cards. I maybe had a few packs of Pokemon cards before that, like every other kid, but that was my first introduction to sports cards, and very quickly just was enamored by it. And then it was to the point where my parents would have me doing chores and they'd have a pack of cards like up above the fridge that I couldn't reach. And once I did all my chores, they'd like pull one card out of the pack and hand it to me. And just like over time, I just fell in love with it. I was born and raised in central Pennsylvania. My dad was from South Jersey. So we were Philly sports fans through and through. And I was a big Phillies fan. And so spent a lot of time just collecting pretty much any Phillies card that I could find. And then got to a point when, I don't know, maybe like early teens, when I figured out I could like find the checklist of every Philadelphia Philly ever to have a certified autograph card. And so
what years are we talking here? What years are we talking?
I mean, I was buying a lot like 08, 09, which is probably the worst time to buy Phillies cards, because, I'm like just overpaying for guys like Utley, Rollins, and Howard, and guys that I like love and still collect to this day. But, I wasn't like, these weren't big investment plays for me back then. Right. So I was just buying like all that stuff that I could find, and was trying to get one certified autograph card of every Philly to ever have a certified autograph card. And I was working through it and I was like getting like relatively close, but then there were these sets with like, 30 different one of ones. I think it was like '06 Top Sterling had like all these Philadelphia Phillies one of one cut autographs. And I'm like, this thing like can't even be completed. And so like I was buying and I just sort of slowed down buying, and then eventually got to a point where I was like, hey, I don't think this collection is going to be completed. I don't think it's going to go up in value. I also, funny enough, collected like a ton of '07 Sweet Spot, which is like, it's good I sold all that stuff because all the autographs have faded off of all those cards over the years. So I sold like all my Sweet Spot cards. I sold all my Phillies cards, and I took that money, and I, at the time, was really interested in this brand called Supreme. And sort of knew enough about them and knew enough about marketing tactics in general to understand that they did not sort of accidentally fall in the place that they were in. They were this brand with this cult following, where you could basically buy anything off their web shop and sell it for double. And it was like a fun and interesting time, and I was really interested in what they were doing. So I took all that money and basically started getting into Supreme and sneakers and streetwear and things like that. I took a few years off from cards. There was a little bit in there where I was like, funny enough, I was really a big fan of, Sam Hinkie, Trust the Process era Sixers. And so like
Oh, yeah.
after the second foot injury, I actually bought a lot of Embiid. And I wish I held it longer, but like I had his select 1/1 rookie autograph. I think I had a couple NTRPAs. I had like some nice stuff of him. I flipped it, probably in like his second season where he was actually playing well, and probably like 3-4x on it and did well. But like if I held it, it would have been 30 or 40x. But anyway, during that time, was more so into Supreme and sneakers and learning that whole space. And got to a point though where I was just working in that industry like 24/7 and was getting burnt out. I'm just like, man, how many times can you see that like Supreme box logo on something before you're just like, oh my gosh, I can't do this anymore, right? So
Yeah.
I was at that point, and my fiance came to me. She was my girlfriend at the time, but she came to me. She's like, "Hey, you need a hobby." And I'm like, "Hobby? Yes, I know this word, right?" Like, and this was right around the time. This was just a few months pre-pandemic. I was tied in with Gary Vee and his team, and obviously he was, all excited about cards at the time and trying to get me involved. And so, like every noob getting back into it, I bought a few boxes of 2019 Prism basketball and started there and ripped those, and then was buying and flipping a bunch of stuff. And then COVID hit, and I'm, just sort of locked away in quarantine, and I'm just like buying every Bol Bol card I could get my hands on, funny enough. And I flipped them in good time. I got rid of them and made money on them. But it's just funny how like getting back into it, the things that you gravitate towards right away when you've been out of the game for a little bit. And then so I actually I fell back in love with the industry entirely after a few years off, and was just up until like 3 a.m. on eBay every night, looking at stuff, trying to learn more, trying to figure out things. And back when I really collected as a kid, like there weren't soccer cards like there are today. And I'm a soccer player and played in college and have played my whole life, and I'm a fan of the game. And so like for me, it was really exciting to see like, oh, hey, there's this like growing market around one of the sports that I really love that like sort of didn't exist before. And so I was dabbling in like, what would it look like to try to start a business here? Where do I think there's the biggest opportunity? Is it in manufacturing? Is it in software? Is it in supplies? Is it in grading? Like, where can I start a company that would be interesting? And so I ultimately got to the point where, and I think this is the point that Fanatics got to too, and realized like there's been so little innovation in manufacturing, and like Topps, Panini, these guys are incumbents that have innovated very little in the last 20 to 30 years. I feel like I could make a card company and actually compete with these guys. And so I had some connections in the venture capital world. I had my pitch deck together. I had a few investors lined up to invest in the company, some that you would know by name, and then got introduced to the people who bought Golden Auctions, got to pitch them, and they were like, hey, this is cool, but our minimum investment's like $25 million. And I'm like, I need like, 2% of that. But they said, hey, we just bought Golden. We'd love to introduce you to the new CEO there. Maybe they'd be interested in investing in this as R&D off their balance sheet. And so I took this to Golden. They were like, hey, this is really cool. We're not in a place to invest, but what would it take to get you to work for us? And I'm like, oh, no, I don't want to do that. Like, I'm okay. I'm good. And after saying no for a few months, they like eventually just made me an offer that I almost had to take. And so I did. And then I was working at Golden for a little over a year. I ran their socials. We took them from, I think like 10,000 across all socials to about $250,000 a year later when I left. And then I left mostly because we built this social media platform for them to be one of the really great pieces of the business, right? But then what happened because of that is all these like consignment directors were selling against it, and it was like, oh, hey, like so and so will give you a post on Instagram if you give us your card, right? And so then like what happened was it got to a point where they said, hey, like you're going to do 6 posts on Instagram a day, 5 of them are going to be delivered to you, and you can like choose what the 6th one is, right? And so I'm kind of like, I get it. I understand it. You want to like get the most value out of this thing, but I don't need to be here for that. So I'm just going to sort of walk away. And it was like totally amicable. I have tons of friends there still. I'm still tight with Ken. And it was like a great time and great experience that I had there, but I think it was the right time for me to walk away. And I just kind of decided like, hey, I think I can do this on my own and make a splash on my own. And obviously there's red tape with businesses and things you have to be really careful about when running a business account that you don't have to be so careful about when you run your own account. So I just saw that as an opportunity. I took a few months off in between, just realized like, man, I've been on screen. Like my screen time is like 12, 13 hours a day. I'm like, I need a few months off. So I took a few months off, and then probably about a year ago, almost exactly a year ago now, started doing content around collectibles and trading cards. And I still love it. I still buy a ton of stuff. We can talk about what I'm into and what I collect later, but that's sort of how we get to this interview today.
Well, that was easily the most succinct and obviously you have the microphone and best sounding collecting story that we've gotten so far. Max, before I ask my follow-up questions, do you have any that you need to get out?
Yeah, that was just like a mini bibliography. Tommy, I'll let you go first.
Well, first of all, you weren't buying Freddie Adu cards back in the day. Come on, everyone. That I remember he had some inserts in some baseball card packs. I want to say like 04 or 05, and I got one of them one time, and I literally freaked out. I was like,
That's pretty funny.
This is the card. Like, hang on to this one with my LeBron SI Kids high school card.
Yeah,
those were the
yeah.
two. Like, those are going to make me rich.
Who knows what? Freddie Adu, they said he debuted at like 14, but he was probably actually like 18. Like, I don't know what the exact situation was, but yeah, funny enough, I did recently buy and sell a I think it's 2004 Upper Deck Freddie Adu, I want to say, is his rookie. So yeah, you're on the money there. Freddie Adu, man. That's a throwback.
Yes, that was my one soccer. You said they weren't making soccer cards. There were some soccer cards out there.
There were some, but there weren't like these sets with like, I mean, it was really only MLS, right? And like even those sets didn't have like parallels and numbered cards. There'd be like maybe an autograph card somewhere in the set that was like numbered, but it was just it's not what it is today.
No, not at all. But just to like round out full circle here, what do you do? Like what is a day? What is like a Monday in your life like? Like what do you do?
Well, today's Monday, so let's see. What did I do today? No, I mean, every day looks a little bit different. I think that's like one of the things about being entrepreneurial is like you never know exactly what your day is going to look like. There's pros and cons to that. It's like awesome to have freedom to be like, hey, I want to like, me and my fiance want to go do something for the day. Like I can go do it. But then it's also like I joke that I have a hard boss because I'm often working until late at night and trying to find new angles and new stories and new exciting things to talk about. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. A lot of my days in content creation and planning. Just trying to figure out, what stories to latch onto and just researching various things in collectibles categories. I'm meeting with a lot of companies to talk about ways that we could partner and do things together. And I probably still spend at least an hour a day on eBay. So there's that. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say what exactly a typical day looks like, but maybe that gives you a little sense.
What is a collectibles guru?
Man, darned if I know.
All right.
That's what you claim to be, though. That is what you claim to be.
Hey, so let me like tell you why I went with that, because I think it's like, you'd be like, why don't you just use your name? And the real reason I did that was I realized right away that when you like go and type in the word collectibles on any social network, like almost nothing comes up and there's no one that comes up. So basically all I wanted to do is like, I believe in collectibles long-term. It's a category that I want to bet on. So I want to be the first thing that comes up when people type in the word collectibles. That's why I like switched over to that. It's not like it was more like a branding play and like a marketing, like, social hack than it was just like something of like, oh yeah, like I'm the man, it wasn't so much like that.
That was kind of my thinking when I went with Cards Max. I was like, all right, this is going to be a placeholder name, but at least for now, I'm going to have cards.
Yeah. Now if I switched it, like imagine the pandemonium, right? If I went from like the collectibles guru to like the collectibles guy, people are like, he's not a guru. Yeah. He finally realized it. Like,
So what, I don't want to, if there's any other motive besides financial, what made you want to, in your own words, produce content? Because you obviously have a very expansive marketing background, both in your own individual success with Supreme and as well as growing all of Golden Socials. But it'd be improper to say that your success on Twitter and other socials has been coordinated, because obviously you generated it all yourself, and I'm not going to take you away from that. But it was also very, I don't want to say sudden, but you knew how to grow it. What made you want to grow it in the first place? What made you want to be a collectibles authority? Because your content is very authoritative in news. And it doesn't seem like you want to be a newscaster or anything. You break the news, you give your analysis. What is your purpose here besides money? And by here, I mean in this space.
No, totally. I get it. I mean, I think part of my purpose in this is I love this. And if I'm going to have to spend 9, 10, 12 hours a day working on something, I want it to be something that I love, right? And this is an industry that I totally love, and I have ambitions to do really cool and exciting things in. And, what sort of better way than to build that on my own through a way where, yes, I can monetize it, and yes, I have freedom, and yes, I can build a brand off of it at some point if I want to. So I think that's more so the motivation. I mean, I feel like I could probably build a following in just about any category that I really wanted to if I put my mind to it and learned that category enough. Um, but this is the category that I like the most and one that I'm super passionate about and have loved for a really, really long time. And so I also think too, I felt like there weren't really too many authoritative voices in the industry. And I don't mean that as like a slant at anyone like Ken or Nat or whoever. Like those guys are totally geniuses, super smart, savvy businessmen that know the industry like the back of their hand, but like they also are running their own businesses, right? So when like Golden gets a really big card and like that's the card that Ken has to talk about. And if Ken thinks that like Topps or Panini is doing something silly, like he can't really go and say that publicly, right? So I just like being in that place where I can talk about things honestly and openly and not have like special interests so much. And I just felt like that was a little bit of a void too. So, I mean, the short answer to your question is if I'm going to have to work on something, I want it to be something I love. And this is something I love.
I just feel like you barely break the fourth wall. Fourth wall. I mean, I'd love to see more personal Ben or personal Eric. And I mean, obviously, you do you. You run your account however you want. But I think part of what some, and I'm not speaking for me, probably for other people, but some, Ben, Eric Whiteback haters is like, oh, this guy is just here to be the authoritative content, and that's it, and get his affiliates, get his clicks or whatever, get his partnerships, and then move on. And it's great that you have that love for collecting. And I'm not going to distance myself from it. I love making money. I love buying.
There's nothing wrong with making money.
I'm not going to say that.
I always like by myself too, like, oh my gosh, like I just want to make more money so I can buy more cards. Like I find myself doing that all the time.
That's the name of the game in some capacity.
Sorry, I totally cut you off there. I just got excited.
No, you're fine. But I think some people do view you as this goblin who's just here to sap the coins out of someone's hard-earned wallet.
Yeah, I don't think that you're wrong about some of that perception. I have, to your point, kind of like distanced myself from the content. Like I've tried not to make the content too much about myself. Even a lot of times too, like I don't post a ton of opinions. I probably have a lot of opinions, but I don't post a lot of them. Like even when I post opinions, it's kind of like more subtly and I make you infer something and I do it through facts where it's like the most expensive, Jason Dominguez card of all time versus the most expensive, like Alex Rodriguez card of all time. Right. And I just like state facts, but then you're like, oh, like, one of the digs on me was like, oh, this guy hates modern cards. He's just super anti-modern. I'm like, dude, if you looked at my stinking portfolio of like all of where my money is invested, like 70% of my net worth is in ultra modern trading cards. So like, that is not the case. You know what I mean? But I think like, there's a part of me that realizes too, it's okay to have some controversy around you. Like, I don't want controversy that offends people. I don't want controversy that does anything that like has victims, so to speak. But I think it's like part of what makes things go viral is when they're cool and controversial simultaneously. Like I said, not controversial in the way of like offending someone, but like this is why ESPN always airs the LeBron versus Jordan debate. It's cool. It's controversial. There's not a definitive answer in it. Right. And so like, I don't mind playing that a little bit. And it's like, I feel like if I just spent time responding to people that hated on things that I did, it would be like, it would take a lot of time and effort and energy away from other things that are way more important. I have this quote that I always like to use. There's actually two. One is, don't wrestle with pigs. You get dirty and they love it. And so that's like how I think about internet trolls. It's like they just want you to wrestle with them and then you get sort of dirty and like they're happy and you're dirty. And that's how it always ends, like no matter what you do. And the other one I think is, I want to say this is like Mother Teresa. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's, she said, if my critics saw me walking on water, they'd say it's because I can't swim. And so it's like, I can hold some of these things in my head at the same time where I'm like, sure, I'd love to convert some of these people, but at the same time, like I'm not going to go out of my way to like just try to appease every single person in the world. I'm going to stick to what I know works and try to use my time on the most, sort of valuable things and the most valuable efforts.
Is your goal in terms of running your socials to just share your perspectives with cardboard or collectibles rather, is to share your perspective with collectibles, or is it just to go viral with collectibles? Because you're talking about, in order for a post to go viral, it needs this component, or you need these consumers to fill in the blank with it and comment it and like it. and to generate that traction.
Yeah, I mean, I
Your
think
entire I don't want to. Is your entire social media existence just virality?
it's not just for virality. I mean, obviously that's a portion of it, right? Like I'm trying to grow this thing to be as big as possible. I want to share this industry with as many people as possible. And like,
Because that's not my priority, or I
yeah,
think most other consumers of yours is priority.
yeah, totally. And like, it is a priority. It's not the priority. If it was the priority, like I would cause more controversy. I'd cause more drama. I'd go and mix it up with people. I'd go and like pick fights. Like that type of stuff I know would go incredibly viral. And I think it's like, I think it's part of why there's this perception around me that there's like, you know, some part of the industry that like really dislikes me is there were a few people that like had decent followings that just would do like rage bait content about me, and they would know it would get all the clicks and it'd be like their most viewed tweets, right? And so they would just keep doing it.
It'd also be a little funny, like in fairness.
Yeah, like dude, I'm good with like some self-deprecating humor, like people poking fun of me is like great. Like I have no problem with that. I poke fun of myself all the time. There was some stuff that like definitely crossed the line and wasn't meant to be like funny or fun and like personal attacks, which is, you know, kind of weird, but yeah, I mean, I don't know, that's just kind of how I think about it.
I respect it. And what I've heard, Eric, is that you are a marketing man through and through. Your name is picked because of SEO juice. Basically, you can own that name a little bit more than anyone else can. You can get ahead of the game. You very famously entered the young old head sphere when you dropped your bit about your odds breakdown for Backyard Breaks. That I was sitting in the Ludex office as basically leading their marketing part of things and going like, this dude's genius. Like if I was Backyard Breaks, this is like, I bet you Backyard Breaks had more website visits ever before the day that you put that out.
Yeah.
Because if I was a breaking company and I was running the marketing for a breaking company, I think the all-time best story you could have about
these
you
guys get
is
juiced product.
Yeah, is that they get juiced product. So I heard that. I heard some other ramblings about you're kind of early on this game at that point. I think Max was like, "Oh, this dude works for Golden." I'm like,
I remember like seeing some conspiracy theory from you guys about how like, I'm like some rogue Golden employee and I'm still on the payroll and then no one knows it. And it's like this whole like shtick. And I sent it to a few of my buddies and we were just getting a kick out of it. But yeah, like, dude, I've never received a dime from Backyard Breaks. I'm friends with those guys. I think people think that I hate them. I don't particularly like the way they do a lot of their content. Like it's not for me. Like if I'm going to break, I prefer for it to be more chill and straightforward and just buy a box of what I want and open it rather than like buy into some sort of casino, like pick your card, buy 2, pick 3, however it works, and like then pay into a huge NFL break and have guys ripping their shirt off on camera while they pull it. But like, it's not for me. I'm not going to like hate on it and say there's anything wrong with it. It's just not the type of content that I prefer. But yeah, like I'm friends with those guys. I think people think I hate them, which is kind of funny.
Were you friends with them at the time?
I didn't know them at all at the time. No. And it wasn't like
friends with them, because usually obviously they took the marketing opportunity and they went with it. But I feel like the usual perception is if someone is attacking another person's brand, it usually isn't amicable.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, I think that's like where it took on a little bit of a life of its own is I don't feel like I attacked them. I only spoke facts in the entire thing. At no point did I go and give any opinion. I just gave a pure mathematical analysis, right? And so I wasn't like, screw Backyard Breaks. These guys suck. This is like the worst. Like I never said anything like that.
Well, that'd be like saying like if Tommy has like a 2.0 GPA, flunked out of community college and doesn't have a job, I'm not criticizing him. But based off those numbers, those are some pretty big implications that you can infer from that of why I'm saying that.
Yeah, but the other thing that I did too is like I was also very careful to call out like if there is something going on here, that does not mean that Backyard Breaks is doing anything wrong. They might not even know they'd be getting juice boxes. And if there is something going on here at the Panini level, it might not really be their fault. It could be so much as one rogue employee in the warehouse doing anything. So like I didn't want to push like, you know, the blame on anyone that ever did. Yeah.
It's maybe this is your craft. It's suggesting it enough to where people can make the very surface level implications from what you're trying to suggest. And then they take those suggestions and run with it. And even though you technically didn't say it, it's bad.
You're like, there is some,
and there's nothing wrong with
art.
that.
There is some art to that. Yeah, totally. And like, but at the same time, I am very careful with the words that I choose. And I was always responding to people like, hey, like this doesn't mean they did anything wrong. This doesn't mean they did anything wrong. And I was trying to like cover my bases, but like, do I still honestly think that something sketchy happened there at some level? Like I do, just based on the math and the numbers. But like, who am I to point a finger at who did what, when, and where it all went wrong? I have no idea.
What spurred the
And
friendship?
wait,
Um,
hold up.
Okay.
We don't need to
I'm gonna
get
get some
into
words
the
in. I'm gonna get some
personal
words.
relationship with backyard breaks, Max. I think there's a little bit more. I will let you get back to this if you
Okay.
feel like it's necessary at the end. But Eric, you're doing a great
That
job of
doesn't add up.
presenting
That's
what
what I'm
you
saying.
do as very impartial, and very, you're growing the hobby or whatever you want to say. But I think that there's a certain criticism that is valid and how you present things. And, there's an art to going viral, and there's an art of presenting facts, and there's an art of presenting facts in a way to make them go viral where the facts lose some of the factualness is a way that I kind of phrased it in my head where, you'll put, the highest selling card for this player is this, the highest selling card for this player is this, but I think there's a whole lot lost in those messages about cards mainly. Just like, hey,
well, yeah, there definitely is, right? Like, I think if we were going to talk about why the most expensive Anthony Volpe card sold for more than the most expensive Alex Rodriguez card, and talk about all the reasons that that happened, that's not a 5-paragraph essay. That's like a 5-chapter book,
But no
right?
one
Like,
would read it.
so like, yeah, of course, not everything I'm saying has all the context. It never will. There's so much context and so much background that goes into this stuff. And like, if I wanted to go and write like a lengthy piece about it, I guess I could. It's just like not really what I do, if that makes sense.
yeah, you go viral. And, I think there are people who will write the 5+ paragraph essay about something that's maybe more of me and Max's realm here of going
Yeah,
on
that's what
deeper
long
into the
form is
reasons.
too. Totally,
Yeah,
totally. And I just
yeah.
don't do long. That's not what I'm doing right now. I'm just not doing long form. I would love to if I had the bandwidth to do it, but
And yeah, no, long form is fun. Me and Max have a lot of fun just like really talking through things. And I think that's kind of where we see our space in the collectible world, is kind of in this long form, having fun, having conversations, talk about shit. Basically, the thesis for Young Old Heads is to have a podcast that you can listen to while you sort your cards for an hour or two a week.
nice.
You don't have to be doing it all the time. We're not a sports analysis podcast. I think a lot of the content and the hobby is very focused on, who do you think is going to win MVP? It's like, that's
Yeah,
ESPN.
yeah.
That's not necessarily cards, and you can't really learn about cards by listening to those sorts of conversations. But Max clearly did not listen to the Eric Whiteback manifesto video on YouTube, where you laid out what you want your goals with this, and one of them was to be a trusted authoritative voice in the hobby, and to be the person, and this stuck with me clearly, to be the person that goes on MSNBC when a big card is sold. So, do you think that there is? I mean, you clearly don't think that there's anything wrong with what you're doing. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with how you're getting there, but like, do you feel like you are that person? Do you feel like you know enough about the industry to be the person that goes on MSNBC when the Honus Wagner sells for $10 million or whatever?
All valid questions. So, am I the world's single foremost expert on collectibles? No, like I'm definitely not. Am I the world's single foremost expert on social media? No, I'm not the single best, right? But like I would put myself top, a decently top percentile in both. And I think what's rare is to have some of that combination. And I think an analogy that I would make um, is Woj the world's smartest basketball analyst? Like, I don't know that he's the world's smartest basketball analyst. Is he the world's best social media person? I don't know that he is. I think he just found a strategy in a lane that worked for him and allowed him to be the person that goes on ESPN when there's trades that go down, right? And I'm pretty comfortable on camera. I'm pretty comfortable in interviews. I think these are all things that make sense for me to be one of those people. I'm impartial. I don't have special interests. And so, like, am I the single best person in the world to do all these things? No, I'm definitely not. Do I make mistakes? Like, all the time. I say stupid stuff all the time. Like, I'm so passionate about this. Of course, some of that's going to boil over into saying something stupid or like, posting something that is a bad take or whatever. Right. And like, I accept that. And that's fine. But, I think that I would be good at it. I think it could be a good thing for everyone. And I'm trying to push the industry forward in those ways. And like some of it's already happened and it's been really cool and exciting. Like there was the ESPN article about box breaks and like they called me to get a quote, and there was the Wall Street Journal article about the One Ring, and they called me to get a quote, and I just had an interview with NPR 2 days ago. Like it's all like really cool and exciting stuff. And yeah, like am I the single best person to talk, especially like for, I don't know, like early 1900s baseball cards? Am I the foremost expert? Like, no, you guys know way more than me about like, T206 backs and like all this stuff. Like you guys would smoke me in that realm, right? But it's just like I'm trying to be someone that can go and talk about these things. And it's like it's the same way as like, is Max Kellerman the world's best analyst? Is Stephen A. Smith the world's best analyst? Like, no, these guys aren't. They know their craft, they're good at their craft, they're smart enough to get by, and they're entertainers. And I think like I'm some combination of those things. I'm not number one at any of those things, and it's just like something I love and a goal. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
No, it does a little bit. I think it gives a window into kind of what your goals are and what you think you're good at, which I think is very insight of to knowing who you are as a person. But something that I want to just quickly address a
Go for
couple
it.
of
Do
the
it.
bigger concerns with you, Eric, on Twitter at least, because me and Max love Twitter. We're addicted to
Yep.
Twitter. Have been since we were before puberty, probably for the worst. But one way to make something go viral, as someone who's run social media for a company before, is just to copy people, see what is going viral, and then more or less copy and paste it into what you're doing. I know there's people who are now doing this to your tweets, which I think is quite funny. But you have been criticized for posting other people's hits, other interesting things that are going on that other people have posted first.
Yeah, totally.
Twitter has a nice little retweet button that I like to use a lot. Why don't you use that button? Do you have anything you want to apologize for, or like in general, like what is your strategy with reposting other people's content?
So I think part of what I would say to that is like there are thousands, if not millions, of like aggregator accounts that they're out there that exist, like mood board accounts. And like from my sort of past life in sneakers, it's like Lil Jupiter and like Hidden NY. And like these aren't accounts that are making original content, but they aggregate things in a really cool way. And they're sort of like curators. And that's how I think about some of that. I'm going to answer some of your other questions here too. So one of your questions is, why don't I just use the retweet button? If I took that philosophy from the beginning, we would not be having this conversation whatsoever. If all I did was just retweet other people's tweets, like you wouldn't be interviewing me, right? So like there's a part of it there. And I think when you retweet something, this is getting like a little bit granular, but algorithmically, when you retweet something, it doesn't send it to nearly as many people as if you make an original tweet. It just doesn't. It's maybe that's a fault in the algorithm. I don't know, but that's the reality of it. If I go and retweet a tweet, it might push it to 10,000 extra people. And if I go and make an original tweet, it might push it to 100,000 or 1 million people. And that's my experience with retweeting. And also it's oftentimes when I see a tweet, it's like there's something cool about it, but I'm like, if you just reworded it and crafted it in this way, and if you crop the photo this way, like it would be like a sort of way better performing piece of content. And and then I'll do that. And then I'm tagging the person who made the original post. And that's, and it's like now I know what we're going to get into is like, well, when do you tag people and when do you don't? And I kind of feel like there's some examples that like you'd almost have to go like example by example on some of it. But I do feel like in general, like when someone is creating a piece of content and I know who made that piece of content, I'm always tagging that person like in the tweet when I make the tweet. Like I almost always am without fail. And then there's times where like I don't know where the post is from. It's a screenshot from my camera roll from 3 years ago, or it's like something that's been circulated on 50 accounts and I find it and I don't know who it's from and I tweet it, or it's like a picture from an eBay listing or something I scraped off of Card Ladder from 5 years ago, or an old golden auction, right? So it's like there's times when it's like dicey and you don't know. And then there's times when it's like someone says something somewhat similar, but like where do you credit them? Or it's like, do they have a Twitter account? Like when do you credit them? And I feel like if you actually go tweet by tweet for the last like 6 months of everything that I've done, you'll see that I'm pretty much tagging people like all the time when and where it's relevant. And part of this thing that came up before was, I think it was Midwest Box Breaks pulled like a Julio Rodriguez superfractor. and I tagged him in the photo instead of in the caption. And he was like really upset by this. If he just would have like sent me a DM and been like, hey, like, you know, I really appreciate if you did this, like whatever, cool, like it would have been it would have been fine. But he sort of like went on he was upset, and he went on this sort of like mission to get people to unfollow and block and say that I steal content all the time. And it's like, I tagged him in the photo. I just like, I don't know. I feel like, to me, in my background in social media, like tagging someone in the photo is enough. There were a few people that thought otherwise. I'm like, okay, fine. Like I'm happy to switch that. I'll tag in the caption. I don't care. Like, and that's what I do. Like every time I post a card that someone pulled now, like you'll see I'm tagging that person every time. Unless they don't have Twitter, then I just say their company name by name. Right.
Do you block anyone ever?
What's that?
Do you ever block anyone?
No, never.
Why not?
I like open dialogue. It's I think too, I try to give a very small circle of people the power to make me mad. And I'm always open for a conversation. And if there's people that don't like something that I do or are upset by something that I've done, which, like, to be candid, I think too has been you guys at sometimes, right? Where you're like, like this is stupid, or this is lame, or how dare you say this, right? Like, and we're having a conversation together and it's cool. Like, and if we did this all the time, we'd probably be like 3 best friends, right? So like, I don't know, why am I going to go like block someone and make it personal? Like, I don't do that. I never block anyone.
I respect that. I don't know if I'd say I wouldn't say, Eric, that you are without fail holding to all these things that you say that you've done, because you say in the last 6 months. Yeah, I think when you started,
I'm not perfect.
I'm not
perfect. I'm not
for
perfect.
sure.
Totally not. I'm not perfect, but I'm trying my best. And like, dude, it's like, do I miss one from time to time where it's like,
yeah,
like,
I don't think the tagging of, you being irresponsible tagging others is really that big of an issue in the first place. And if it is, it definitely isn't a big issue now, because you are pretty diligent, if anything, overly diligent, and make sure you don't skip a beat.
Yeah, I'm trying to. Like, now there was like an examples, like there's one the other day where it's like, I posted a photo of, I think it was She Breaks, like holding a Mac Jones gold vinyl Prism card. And I just captioned it like, which quarterbacks are undervalued in the NFL right now? And like some people got really upset that like I posted a photo from She Breaks and I didn't like tag that it was from them. And I'm like, this was an old screenshot in my camera roll. I don't think she has Twitter. I could have posted any photo of any card there. It wouldn't have changed how the content performed. I just went to my camera roll and found the first picture of a QB, and then like, it's like people get upset by it. And I think like part of my question too is like, okay, yes, I'm not perfect. I'm trying to tag people as best I can, but at the end of the day, like, is it that, like, I think Max, to your point, I'm like, is it that big of a deal? Like, what happens if I put like in the bottom of the photo, like, oh, like the photo by She Breaks on Instagram? Like, no one's going to go and like look that person up and then go and follow them. And like, it's going to make the content perform worse. It's ultimately going to just like lessen the speed at which the hobby grows, and to no gain for anyone.
So is your entire account a vehicle to grow the hobby?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I love how you're positioning this for like what's good for the Eric Whiteback Twitter account is what's good for the hobby.
Well, the thing that I'm gonna say is like, I am tagging everyone as best as I can everywhere.
I don't even want to go that deep into it, because I think it's a point that I agree with, and I think it's a point that, if anything, you are more correct on than your critics.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and if I'm wrong, well, I'm thinking like there's gonna be things where people critique me and they're right too. Like, that's okay. But yeah, I'm biased, but yes, I think me growing my account is good for the industry. I think that I get DMs like every single day, like 5 people, like, oh, I got into cards because of you. Like, what should I be buying? Right. And it's like, and then I'm sending them to like, I always just send them directly to my pinned tweet. And I'm like, hey, like, go read about that. And that's talking about like, hey, like, don't go and like rip wax necessarily. Like, think about what your goals are. Think about like buying singles. Think about what you want to collect. Are you here to just collect? Are you here to invest? Like, there's a whole conversation around that, and like trying to inform people in a reasonable way. And I think like, look, I think that was one of my big frustrations around the hobby when we really saw the pandemic boom. Was like, we had this perfect storm that will probably never be replicatable in terms of the biggest rush of people to cards in the history that we will ever see ever, period, point blank. And what happened? Prices went like this, and then they came right back down on the other end, because what happened was there was like no one actually doing interesting educational content, and no one that was like saying things that I found to be like wise collecting advice. And then like everyone comes in and they buy all the Zion and they buy all the whatever, and it all goes down. And like what happens when they get burned on the cards is they're like never coming back to the industry again. If I went and spent $10,000 on like, I don't know, Luca cards, or if I went and spent 10,000 on Mahomes and then he goes and wins a Super Bowl, my cards are now worth $2,500. Like, I'm just like, this is stupid. Like, I'm not doing this again. Right. And so like part of what was frustrating for me there was I felt like it was the perfect storm to make the hobby be significantly bigger in pop culture, and yet the sort of incumbent voices that existed in the industry pushed people towards terrible decisions.
So you
I
say
totally
that you,
agree.
yeah, that's
Max, what sort of weird question do you got, Max?
good. No, they're not weird questions.
No, I'm just
and I think
fucking
look,
with you.
overall
I'm just
account
fucking with
growth
you.
for the hobby is good for the hobby, and I love cards, and I'm never not going to love cards, and I'm saying this out of a love for cards and sometimes money. So, but I think in order to produce authoritative content, you inherently have to be an authority or see yourself as an authority to some extent. And stemming off you saying that you don't really block people, you don't view things personally, which I think is good and healthy. But so you even just said sometimes your critics critique you and you're right. And sometimes the critics are right. When's a recent time that your mind has been changed by some of the very loud critics that have been antagonizing you recently?
Well, I think one easy example is like I used to just tag people in the photo. Now I tag them in the caption, right? That's a very basic, easy example. I'm trying to think of like other ones that come to mind where someone said something and
because I think it takes an ego. It takes being very, in a good way, stubborn on your own content, on your own mission, on your own. Hey, I want to be quoted by NPR and ESPN, or I don't want to misphrase that, but have your involvement in that.
Yeah.
And it takes a either healthy or unhealthy amount of not listening to other people. And if anything, that's very commendable.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
you still have to leave yourself malleable to change sometimes. And I think, like you said, the mentioning of, or quite literally the mentions in your tweets are conductive to listening to others.
yeah, and I try to even respond to people sometimes and explain myself when it makes sense. If someone's like really mean and nasty, I'm probably just going to leave it. But if someone poses a reasonable question, I try to answer it when I can. And yeah, there's times when I have factual errors and I say, like, I think there was one time that maybe it was even one of you guys that mentioned me, and I had a list of cards of like the perfect game, people who threw a perfect game in their most valuable cards. I think it was one of you guys like called out like, oh, hey, you missed like one. Like yeah, you're right. I did miss one. You're totally right. And so like, yeah, it can be things like strategic things. It can be things about, factual errors, all that stuff. Like I'm totally not perfect, but at the same time, like, you know, there's a Marcus Aurelius quote about the reason that you open your mind is not to stay in this state of open-mindedness, it's to close it around something yet more firm. And so I think that's like a good way to think about like being open-minded yet being somewhat stubborn in what you believe, and not just like folding to people who want separate things from you. So it's like maybe I can be a little bit closed-minded with stuff, but I'm always like looking for something to make things better and improve things. And people come to me with those things. And then like, once I find that thing, I open my mind, I close my mind more firmly around that. And it's like, let's rock and roll.
Seems like a very healthy selfishness. And I'm saying healthy.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I try not to be a selfish person. I don't like, is wanting the best. What is the definition of selfish?
Or at the very least, worried, or not necessarily worried, focused on your own best outlook.
Yeah, I mean, I am trying to create like my own best reality, but I'm certainly not trying to, like, I would never. And this is back to your original question of like, is your goal pure virality? No. Like, I want to be as viral and reach as many people as possible with my content. That's part of what I do in my job and career, but I am not willing to cross like moral boundaries to do that. Right. Like, I know I could go and be like, some like one of my, someone who used to hate me, like Ryan's Cards LLC, used to like come at me all the time. And I could have just like picked a fight, like said nasty things and gotten a ton of engagement, like reached a ton of people. And like, instead, like we became friends, and if I took the first route and was like, you know, I'm gonna like go after him, whatever, like would have been viral, would have been a whole thing. I probably would have like more followers, whatever. But I'm like, no, I'd rather like do the right thing than do the thing that's gonna go more viral. So to answer your question, like I care, yes, I care about going viral, but I won't do it at any expense.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. From what I'm hearing, Eric, like you have entered a certain hobby industry where this older generation is most dominant, at least online, because they've been having blow up forums for a while. They have these really kind of older internet communities that they have their way of doing things. And now there's all these new people coming in from COVID and
Yeah.
everything. And
Yeah.
they have not taken super well to these new voices who are coming in being like,
I get
hey,
it.
actually, like, and I totally get that. I
I
think
get
we
it.
all deal with that all the time. Like, I think me and Max have both had experiences, especially at like shows and stuff, where like
Mhm.
older guys just assume that you don't know shit or like that you're here just to like clout chase or whatever.
Yep.
And I
I've
think that clout chasing is part of it. It's fun. It's like fun to make videos about your cards and have people like see a bunch of shit about you're building your gold prism set. And I think that's
Mhm.
cool. And like people are salty, and that's part of the game, is like on the internet, especially like if you have anything that sees that many eyes, you're going to get a certain amount of haters, and like being able to deal with that is something not everyone can do. And I respect that you have this sort of like humbleness about it, and you have the humble brags, and I think those are fine to have and good to have, and part of the internet is like being able to humble brag pretty well, and
Well,
then people respect you a little bit.
and I'll be like totally honest too. Like, there's probably been a half dozen times where I've seen something on the internet about me that just ruins my day. And like, I just feel like I just go and take a nap and sleep for 3 hours and wake up and like, you know, eat dinner and work out and go to bed or something. Right. I'm, I think people forget that, like, dude, I'm just a normal 27-year-old kid, right? And I think it's like easy to look at any sort of person on social media with a certain number of followers and be like, oh, like, you know, I'll say this and that, like they'll never see it, or I'll say this and that, like this person feels like not a person to me. Like, um, yeah, like there's one on one hand, it's like I do my best to try not to let things bother me or get to me, but like I think it's a good reminder to people too. Like one of the things that was really frustrating to me was what was it? It was like the Lucille Ball autograph that that guy pulled, and there was like this whole scandal around like, oh, did he search the pack? Like yada yada, and like people like attacking him and his kid and stuff. And I'm like, this should have been a really fun and exciting moment for this guy. Who cares if he searched the pack at Target? It doesn't matter. Like let the guy like have some fun and not attack him. I'll add here too, like um people are less positive when cards are down. And cards, like in general, a lot of them are down a lot. And I think, like, you know, when you're holding the bag on certain things or have lost money on certain things, and then particularly like there was a big group of people that would get really upset when I would talk about how a certain modern card is overvalued. It's like they probably have some money in similar things and are afraid that I'm affecting the market. And it's also just easier to be like crotchety when things are down, right? Like if you're losing money, you're more likely to go online and say something negative than if you're like up 5x, right? So I think there's a lot of things at play. I do think there is some tribalism in collecting that really does rub me the wrong way. In terms of like, and an example I would even say is whenever I post something NFT related, there's like this whole group of people that like, you know, screenshot, right click, save as, like, you guys are all stupid. I can't believe anyone would buy this stuff. Like, you guys are idiots. And it's like, it's this weird thing where it's like, look, if someone wants to collect that stuff, it doesn't have to be for you. Like, just let them collect it and have fun and enjoy it. And it's like, if you wanted to win the NFT people over to trading cards, what you would do is be like, oh, this is interesting, right? Like, cool, like, good for this guy. He bought the really expensive thing, or, you know, good for this guy. He flipped it and made 20x, right? Or, hey, like, I don't get this, but, you know, more power to the people that are into it. But instead, like what card collectors do is they go and they like, and I'm not, this is a generalization, this isn't everyone, but some people will go and like be really combative to people who collect other things. I'm like, look, if you collect anything, we are all on the same team. Like, stop being tribal. The way to win people over to cards is not to attack the thing that they collect. It's to just like show some general interest and to generally be kind to those people. That's how you win them over. So it's this weird thing where like you think that you're winning people over by trying to diss the thing that they collect, but the way to win them over is to, you know, just be kind and show some general interest. So yeah.
No, I think that's a good sentiment. And like I think there's always comparisons that you can draw between collectible industries, and I think that you do a decent enough job of being like, these are similar things in the NFT world versus cards, or like I know you did the whole promoted post about some NFT card thing, and it's like you drew comparisons to be like this is similar to like this thing in cards, and I think that that is a way of doing it. There are some people who just aren't into cards, and that's just how it's going to be, and that's totally
okay.
fine.
Yep,
that's totally fine.
Yeah.
Max, do you have anything you want to ask before I turn this to a nerdy card conversation that does not involve addressing controversies that Eric has started on?
Come on, hit me, Max. What do you got? You guys been too easy on me.
I've been too easy. Okay, well,
No,
I'm just trying to say what's on my mind. I'm just trying to be as respectful and as galvanizing as possible. But I think, what?
Yeah, I think what I learned, Eric, is that
I wasn't done.
I'm sorry.
No,
Keep going.
No, apology accepted.
I'm just doing my bridge. Keep going.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, something that Tommy and I poke fun of a little bit is that, or that I specifically do, is that sports are a form of tribalism. Tommy will dissent on that, and no, Tommy, you won't. Okay, cool.
No, I won't dissent. I just say that it's not a bad thing that it's tribalism.
I think sports are tribalism.
You say it with such negative connotation.
Yeah, I think people activate their inner chauvinist. They act very territorial. Like, my New York Knicks, very few of them, I think, if any, are from New York. My New York Yankees, very few of them are from New York or from the same schools or towns. And that's with really up until, the high school level, unless you're at a very high school, unless you're at an elite sports academy, your people on the football field went to classes with you. Once you get to the college level, these aren't the same people that are your peers intellectually or athletically, or they're not a representation of the student body. But paralleling that to this, sports cards have a lot of community. I think the average person is probably, if you look at averages, the average person has one boob and one testicle. The averages mean nothing.
That's funny. I've never heard that. But
like, with that in mind, if you have a hive mind of maybe the most dedicated people to cards in this space, I'd say Instagram, I'm going to get to a point, but Instagram is a lot of showboating. Twitter is a lot of conversation. And I'd argue and contend the people that are card hobbyists on Twitter are maybe the most opinionated because it's a medium that supports it. And I'd say even the majority of them are anti Eric Whiteback. I don't think it's fair to say it's just one slew critic that's just being very antagonizing. If this entire community is very anti Ben Haynes, even more anti Ben Haynes than I am, if anything, this is a fun conversation. Does that signify that there's something wrong or incorrect in your approach? That's a lot to unpack.
I'm gonna answer first. I'm gonna answer a different question than you asked, and then I'll answer the question that you asked. So the first thing that I'm gonna answer to is, I don't think that it's a majority at all. I would say, like, most people don't know about me, and of most people who know about me, I think like 99% are probably like, this is cool, fine. Like, I'm not like a super fan, but like, post interesting enough stuff, I'll just follow and pay attention. And then I think there's like maybe 0.1% that are like really engaged super fans, whatever, and like that's awesome. And there's probably like, maybe I'm leaving out like a few tenths of a percent, but I would say there's like in the vicinity of 0.1% that are like outspoken against what I'm doing. And to like put that into numbers, it's like my following across platforms is over 2 million. Like, how many people have you actively seen saying negative things against me? I'm going to say it's less than 2,000, which would put it at less than 0.1%. I just think like a huge majority of people are like sort of apathetically like, yeah, like I see his stuff, it's interesting enough. Like, I'm kind of into cards. It's worth like, just hitting the follow button. Like, I think that's how like 99+% of people are. So I would disagree that most people are like very anti me. I think it's a few loud voices. I think it's when people are anti me, it tends to go viral. It tends to be this rage bait strategy to reach a lot of people. And it works for whatever reason, particularly on Twitter, just probably because I have a loud enough voice there that it's like, like I said before, controversial things tend to go somewhat viral. So I think that is a piece of it, is that there's people that realize that when they say negative things about me, they can reach a lot of people. Yeah, I know. I think it's I think it's a much smaller percentage than sort of the way that you're laying it out here. I don't think I've seen more than 2,000 people say something negative, for example, right? Um, a lot of times it's the same voices too, where I can like see a username and be like, not even see what they said and know it's going to be something hyper negative. Um, but yeah, I think you've probably seen like plenty of things that are said negative about me. But it's like anytime you go into someone who's saying something negative about me and it's reaching a lot of people, it tends to be like their most viewed tweet in the last 100 tweets. And it's like, does that mean that I think that every single person that does it is like disingenuous? Like, no, I'm sure some people mean it, and that's okay. But I think there's some part of it too where people realize that it's an opportunity to get clicks and views and things like that. So even of the sort of people that are very anti, I'd say some percentage of them aren't really as anti as they make it look. And I'll also add on top of that, one final point before I answer your question is I don't block anybody. And so what that does is that opens me up to people saying negative things. I also recognize too that like some amount of some people saying negative things is somewhat helpful, just in terms of like driving conversation and controversy and people like thinking and talking about things. But look, if I went and blocked 500 Twitter accounts, it would look like there was no one that was against me because they wouldn't see my tweets and they wouldn't be able to interact with them. And like, it just wouldn't be like nearly the conversation that it is. Like, I almost guarantee you, and this is not to say that like one is right or wrong. I almost guarantee you that people like Jeff Wilson or Sports Card Radio or whoever are like blocking people, like, or Ken Golden's blocking people. Like, they're all blocking people. I'm like the one person that doesn't do it. And so because of that, everyone has access to say whatever they want about me. They don't have that with anyone else. Maybe not anyone else, but they don't have that with most other people who have as big a following in cards. And so, that's sort of like how I would position the reality of the current situation. Does it mean that because people are upset you've done something wrong? No, I don't think it does. This is like, I'm not going to compare myself to this person. No one should. But just to make the point that just because people are upset doesn't mean you didn't do anything wrong. It's like they crucified Jesus, like, and not for nothing, like, just to be real for a second, like my faith is a super important part of my life. I'm a Christ follower. It's a huge part of what I do. It's the most important thing to me that there is. And he was someone that never sinned, never did anything wrong, and they killed him for it. So, all that means, no, I'm not comparing myself to Jesus. That is not what just happened. The only point that I'm making is that just because people are mad doesn't mean you did something wrong. And that's the pinnacle example of it.
Yeah. At least I think there's Tommy, I'm gonna let you speak. I'm sorry.
No, I want you to keep talking.
Yeah, I want to get into this. I think there is a lot of merit to what you're saying, especially with maybe 90% or higher of followers of Eric Whitepack Media Incorporated are just scrolling on the phone. They maybe entered from a giveaway. They see the cool shiny card. They like it. They move on. At least anecdotally, I don't have the statistics to back it up, but the larger critics of you seem to be individuals that are more.
Oh no. Well, if Max was not about to start talking in tenths of percents, I was gonna get pissed at him. So I'm gonna just fill in while Max is pausing.
What did you think Max was gonna say there before we lost him?
Oh, he was gonna say that most people who are critics of you are people who are relatively respected in the hobby, I think, is where he was going. Like, there are people who are relatively or I would say, generally speaking, I haven't looked at all your negative comments that have been said about you. I'm sure most of them are from mainly troll people, but there are some more respected people. I did not do this research. This is Max's question, but I think this is where he was going with it. We're like, there are people that I will say I respect who have said that they maybe, aren't fans of what you do and the content you put out there and how the ways that you get your account to grow, basically, for lack of a better way of putting it.
So I guess the question there is, why do I think that is? And I would honestly love to hear your opinion on it before I give my own opinion on it. Like, why do you think that might be the case?
Because I think that mainly these people that are on social media who are respected people in cards are mainly about sharing information without thinking about presenting that information in a way that's going to make it go viral. So you got guys like, you just have these old heads who like aren't using social media to grow accounts. They're using it to share ideas. And that's totally
Yeah.
fair. And that's where I kind of was getting at with my point earlier about this, like, the hobby's been on the internet for a long time. Not like most, like everything that's ever been out there. Like the hobby's had these like forums for, these dudes have been talking to each other on the internet for like almost 3 decades about cards.
Yep.
And if you're doing anything differently from them, like I think you get a lot of the same critics who just criticize influencer content. Not the word influencer, content creators in general. Like they critique content creators because the goal of content is to grow your following. It's not the same goal as like spreading information about the hobby.
Totally. And
sure
so
everyone's more educated.
I think the way that I would sort of describe that is people confuse social media for a meritocracy. It is not such. It is not that way. It is not that the foremost expert or the, the person who's been in it the longest, like automatically gets the biggest following, or the person who deserves it has the most people who listen to them, or the highest character person is the one that has the opportunity to give the advice to the most people. Like that's not how it works. And I think, to your point, people who have been in this way longer than me, and who particularly have been in not just in cards, but in card content creation longer than me, I think there's some component of them mistaking social media for a meritocracy than being like, wait, this guy doesn't deserve this, right? Like, why does he get to be the one that goes viral, or the one that has X number of followers or whatever? And to those people, I would remind them, like, I do not claim to be the world's biggest OG in this space. Like I've loved it since I was a kid, but I'm not the single biggest expert in the world. I just happen to know how social media works really well. And I will recognize that there are plenty of people within cards and within the card industry that deserve to have more followers than me, right? Like Ken Golden deserves to have more followers than me. Nat Turner deserves to have more followers than me. They don't, but they deserve to. They like definitely deserve to. Like, I don't know who, like Fish at Blowout, like deserves to have more followers than me. Like there's probably 100 people, 1,000 people I don't know that like deserve to have more followers than me if we're going to base it off of this meritocracy. But what social media is that number of followers you have isn't a value on like who you are as a person. It's just sort of some like, metric of how good you are at capturing attention on a social platform that has an ever-changing algorithm. I just happen to be good at that. And I think some people mistake that for like me thinking that I'm like some god, or that like, oh, like how's this kid get to like have this? Like I get it, but I think your answer is probably the same answer that I would have in terms of why some of those respected voices, or voices that have been in it longer than me, might be some of the negative or dissenting voices.
The humble brag. It's good. You're good at it, Eric. I respect it. And Max, I think I finished your question for you. So,
but he doesn't compare himself to Jesus.
He doesn't.
No, I don't. I know I'm going to regret even saying that, because it's like going to, someone somewhere is going to clip it and cut out the part where like I say,
I understand. It's so funny though.
Yeah, it is funny. No, it's not a comparison anyone should make.
Eric, do you got some time to talk cards with us?
Dude,
you still got time?
What time is it?
9:14 p.m.
It's 1 a.m.
It's 1 a.m. Dude, I was just gonna like make a joke about how like, oh, it's 10 p.m. Like, yeah, I have 3 more hours, but yeah, I gotta cut it. Like, so yeah, dude, we could. I will do this all night. Like, if you can't tell, like, well, and you're about to find out. Like, we've kind of been talking about me the whole time, which is okay, but I'm more excited to talk about other things. So,
let's do it.
We can talk cards all night if you want to.
Let's talk cards. I think people are gonna listen to this whole episode regardless of how long we make it. So I'm pro make it. I just turned Max on to Dan Carlin, his history podcast. They go for like 5 hours. We're not about to do a 5-hour podcast, but I think I got enough meat on the bone still for the people that are really just here for cards, not our analysis of society and how social media impacts humanity, as we were getting into earlier. As fun as that is, I want to talk about something that me and Max talk about a lot with our guests, which is kind of where you go to learn about cards. Because I think common theme of our podcast is that there's not really some sort of centralized database where you can go for all information on cards. There's a lack of centralization of information and knowledge that makes card collecting fun, because there's still frontiers to be found and like things to collect that are rare and cool that maybe no one else has found, not because they're not cool, but because no one has found it yet or taken the time to like go into it. I'm kind of teeing you up here also to give credit where credit's due for like where you've learned and like people out there that are knowledgeable that have shared with you. So kind of like both of I'm interested to know also when you were younger, because you said you were doing this like collection of Phillies players. So learning, I want to know like where were you going for information at that point?
Yep.
And nowadays, where are you learning? Where are you buying? Where are you selling?
I think the single most important tool for any collector of any item whatsoever is eBay completed listings. I think that's like, if you are a collector who collects anything other than maybe like something really absurdly expensive, like, I don't know, vintage cars or something, or houses, like things that you can't list on eBay. If you collect anything besides those things, like, eBay should be your single biggest tool for learning, and it should be your single biggest tool to figure out what the heck's going on. So the couple of things that I always tell people is like, you want to really figure out how to use eBay completed and sold listings. You want to make sure you understand how to take things with a grain of salt and recognize that things might not always be exactly what they look like, but still be able to sort of parse through that data and figure out what makes sense. And I would tell people all the time too, like, make saved searches, and just before you even buy anything, figure out 100 things you're interested in, make saved searches for all of them, and just watch them for 6 months and see how often things come up for sale and how often things get listed. Because for certain cards, this was like really true of vintage soccer 2 years ago before people were grading it. It's really true of a lot of video games today. It's like, you don't know how rare something is until you have an eBay save search for 12 months and check it every day. Because it's like, you might be a month in and be like, wow, 15 of these got listed already. Like, it's not that rare. You might be 6 months in and be like, I haven't seen a single original sealed Super Monkey Ball copy in 6 months. So like, I know when one comes up, I'm going to be ready to pay for it. So I think there's some element of patience as it relates to figuring out how rare something is, but understanding the rarity of something is really, really important before you go and buy it, because pop reports can't be fully trusted as this like 100% source on exactly how rare something is, or else like, some Jason Kidd 2019 Prism base card is like one of the rarest cards in the world. So yes, the pop reports are also a great tool, and I'll use this as my segue. Pop reports are also a great tool. You should totally check them, whether it's video games or comics or trading cards or anything that has a pop report. You should check it before you go and buy an item. You should know how many are graded in that condition. Other tools that I use Card Ladder a lot. I think one of the things I love about Card Ladder the most is that it shows you eBay sold data and all these other auction houses too, but it shows you sold data going back like 10, 15, 20 years, which is like incredible, because that's sort of a shortcut to be like, well, geez, I don't know how many of these were listed in the last 3 months. We can just go and type it in on there and hit sold listings and date most recent, and then just see like, okay, look, there was 2 of these in the last 5 years, right? So I think there's a little bit of a shortcut there, and I love just being able to go and type in like mantle, price highest first. Okay, here's like the 5th highest mantle. Like, hey, there's been like 32 mantle sales over like $750,000, right? So like, for me in my content creation, Card Ladder is a really, really, really helpful tool. But I also use it a lot too to like get comps on things. And my brother's trying to do the 99 Bowman Best Atomic complete set. And he's like, hey, like, give me a comp on like AJ Burnett. Like, there wasn't. So like, he'll text me and I'll go in Card Ladder. I'll look, I'll send him the screenshot. So like, Card Ladder is a big tool that I use. Another tool that I use a ton is TCDB. I think that is, I don't know who listens to this podcast, but if there is anyone at any serious like company with cash, whether it's like, collectors or alt or Fanatics or Panini, like, someone needs to buy them and modernize that operation, because what they have there is worth an insane amount of money. And that's an incredible tool. And if they got that out to the right people and like really marketed that the right way, people would have realized that thing is like, I would pay $100 a month for that and I wouldn't blink.
The stories, Eric, that I could tell you about TCDB and the people behind TCDB. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about them.
Dude, I don't know who it is. I don't know any of their stories. If you need to tell me off air, you can, but if you can't tell me at all, that's okay too. But
no, I can. Here's what I'll tell you. TCDB is run as an archaic.
Totally.
I don't know if it's a company. It's a couple people. They have a lot of server space. They are running more ads now than they were earlier, but I think they'd be fine with me talking about this. When I was working at Ludex, I know that there's at least conversations around how much would it cost to buy TCDB? Is that worth it? And I know that there was at least a communication back and forth with them where they said,
if they had 0 active users, by the way, I would still view them as a multi-million-dollar property.
Oh yeah. It's unbelievable what they've done. And like the fact that it's crowdsourced has created a lot of issues for the
Yep.
long-term longevity or
Mhm.
like health of the service, how fucked up the database is in a lot of different ways. But
It's not perfect. It's pretty good though. If you really look, there's not that many major issues. But
no,
I'll let you get your point here. What's your? I
no.
need
The
to hear
point
the
is just
story.
like no. The point is just they're not really at a point to sell. I don't think they want to sell.
Yeah.
They were at least as of a year ago in conversations with some company about some sort of partnership.
Mm-hmm.
That now I have still yet to see how it's come to fruition on the full side of things. But I think TCDB is like from the ground up, like one of the most OG website internet. Like this is born
Mm.
out of the same vein as like Napster file sharing sites. Like I
Yeah,
just love that
totally.
it's still out there, still thriving. So I had to do my little TCDB thing. That's one of my favorite things. That was like when I started getting back into collecting after I graduated college, like during COVID. I was home. Classic story. But TCDB is where I went because I was like, oh, there's a lot of like OG collectors who are like, oh, this is where I track my collection. And I was
Yep.
obsessed with
Yep.
having the most Klay Thompson cards on
Yeah.
TCDB.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that's what I want. I was always trying to get Ludex to have that leaderboard because I was like, that's
Totally.
literally why I'm
Leaderboards
checking
should be a thing.
TCDB is the leaderboard. So I'm glad you
Well,
shouted
my
them out.
my advice to TCDB would be sell. And my other advice to TCDB would be you should pay people for information, and you should try to create some sort of system where like you're rewarding people for putting new info on the site. I would love to see pack odds, and like I wish when I clicked into the overview of a certain set that like it showed a picture of like the back of the wrapper or the back of the box to show the pack odds. And then like if there was a way to also include like here's a calculation of how many boxes there are based on the pack odds. Like I think all that stuff could be so valuable. And yeah, certainly like if the right company bought that, like imagine Fanatics buys that, and they can input everything in there right away, and they can even go, backdate stuff and add new things. And like you could reward people with, cash or a point system to be like, hey, look, you like found that this card was duplicated in the listing, or you missed that like, oh, we didn't have the glow in the dark Allen Ginter mini from like whatever year it was, right? Like
Outsource everything.
yeah, and you could like reward people for it, and it could be a thing where like okay, like four people like or 40 people like made some note on this card to like click the like report like error on it, so like we're removing it, right? So yeah, I don't know, I love that website. Other things I use GemRate some. I think they're pretty cool. Trying to think what else. I don't want to like leave anything out.
Do you go on
TCDB.
ComC? Do you do ComC solds ever? Those are an interesting world.
I never do ComC solds. I use ComC. I don't really sell on ComC. I just buy things on there when they get listed on there. But I've never used their sold property.
They have some deep sales data on there. If that's your game,
That's interesting. I know there's a card on there that I want to know how much it sold for, which is the Devin Booker Black 1/1 Prism Rookie, sold on ComC Raw like when it came out, and I'm curious what it sold for. And I don't even know if I knew that you could go and look at sold data on ComC.
Yeah, you can get some pretty good data. They hold some of it close to the chest because when I was working at Ludex, I got a lot of info on like how far back people have sales data for some of these websites and some of these softwares, and like how much they have available but aren't showing the public versus actually have it. ComC has data for days. I'll tell you that. That's what I'll tell you. But I appreciate you giving us a little window into it, how you approach researching cards and stuff. I think those are the sorts of things that I think if we can spread the word about how those things are done as much as we can,
definitely.
The health of the hobby will be for the best for the long term.
I also have other friends and hobbyists and experts I go to too when I have questions. Like I am not above asking Ken Golden what the value of a card is when I want to figure out like if I'm too high or too low on something. Like I'll go to people and ask if I feel like I'm not suited to give a number. And sometimes people want me to include them. Sometimes people don't want me to quote them. So like, there's some of both. But yeah, I also have like, I don't know, I've got multiple trading card group texts where I'm just shooting the breeze with people back and forth all day. And
you've got a lot of friends.
I don't have a lot of friends. I have a few very core friends, I think is probably like more accurate.
So what do you collect, Eric? Don't talk about video games. Don't talk about comic books. What cards do you collect? What gets you going?
Okay, so there's a Venn diagram of this is what I collect, this is what I invest, and there's like an overlap. So I'll start with the pure what I collect that is zero investment, which is probably what you guys will be most excited about anyway. Late 90s, early 2000s, Phillies. any like key insert set parallel. Like I want to do PMGs, I want to do 24 karat brilliance, I want to do 98, 99 atomics, 99 finest gold refractors, essential credentials, super raves, star rubies, like all that stuff are things that I'm going for. Some of them I'm like, yeah, I got like 499 finest gold refractors of Phillies, and other ones it's like, yeah, I've got like the Desi Relaford PMG, and I don't think that collection is going to grow too much anytime soon, So I'm after all that stuff. I have save eBay searches for all of it. I'm always looking for it, and then I will also just buy like any Philadelphia Philly 1-of-1 trading card ever. The exception is like it has to be licensed. I'm not like buying unlicensed stuff, and I won't buy like the Topps Archive signature, buybacks, because if I add those to like I'll buy those 1-of-1s, then I'm just like the whole collection is going to be that because they're so available, and it would just kind of be like a lot of money. So, late 90s, early 2000s is what I love the most. But then in terms of 1-of-1s, I'll go buy anyone. Like I'm trying to think. Like I just got like a Cam Perkins 2014 Bowman Chrome Super Refractor. Who, like, did he ever have a major league at bat? Like, I don't know, but it's like a Phillies Super Refractor. So like sick, I'm buying it. Then outside of that, I do gold prisms and this is still in my, like, this is maybe a little overlap of investment because I do feel like, these probably are not the worst thing to hold. But I have, I'm trying to do every Philadelphia 76er and every Philadelphia Eagle gold prism. I probably have like 50 of each. So I'm like nowhere close. I don't go and overpay for them, but like when I feel like I can get one at market or cheaper, like I'll just scoop them up and then just add them to the collection. So, I have
put together some beasts. You're just going after just hard ass projects, like the difficulty level high. I want to even harder. Like
the more you'll get to know me, the more you'll learn about me. Dude, I just like I like to do things big and just like throw Hail Marys, and I'm like, if things don't work, they don't work. But I like swinging for the fences. So I think like PC is those things. The one other PC I have that I don't get the chance to talk about a ton, but every now and then get to throw it into something like this is like, so my dad worked for Hershey Foods. Like I mentioned before, he was there like 17 years. And he was in charge of a lot of their sports partnerships. And one of those partnerships was they did the main sponsorship for a few NASCAR cars. I don't know if you guys know NASCAR at all, but they did Kevin Harvick, they did Johnny Sauter, they did Clint Boyer. And then my dad went and worked for Ollie's Bargain Outlet, which is like a Big Lots competitor. And they did a couple paint schemes with like Jamie McMurray, Dave Blaney, guys like that. And so like when they were doing that, my dad was actually the guy that designed the cars and designed the fire suits. And so like to me, this is like a really fun like piece of my childhood where like we'd get home from church on a Sunday, we'd go watch the NASCAR race. And like I don't watch NASCAR at all like anymore, but like when I was 12, it was like the coolest thing in the world to me. And like, when we go to a race, like we'd get to hang out with the drivers and stuff. And so it was a really, really fun thing for me, and just like something that I'm just totally nostalgic and sentimental about. And there's this is the thing for me that is like the furthest on the line of like, this is purely a collecting thing. Like I know these are like worthless. Right. But anytime that there is a card that features a paint scheme or a fire suit that my dad did, I'm not buying the base cards, but any other card I'll buy. So it's autographs and numbered cards and relics and things like that. But, yeah, I'm like, I have safe searches for those. And it's funny because like, sometimes to your point earlier, people would be like, oh, he's just here to like get something out of this. And it's like, just here for money. It's like, dude, like I get more amped over finding the right $3 card than the right $3,000 card. I mean, money's cool. Money's great. No one's like, everything else being equal, more money is better. And I don't think either you're going to argue with me on that one. But
what did Jesus say about money though? What did Jesus say about money?
Hey, give to Caesar what is Caesar's.
There you go.
Yeah, you talked a lot about money, but I don't think that we unless we want to get this to be the biblical podcast and go deep on his parables, I think we can save that for another convo.
I have to bring it up at least one more time. Every time you name drop Ken Golden, I get to make a Jesus reference. Yeah. That's the new rule.
Hey, that works for me. So where was I? Yeah, those are the things that I'm really like personally collecting, going after. Every now and again, I'll make a play on some like rookie that I like. Like I have a really nice Vinicius Junior, 2018 Optic Gold PSA 10, which is like a sweet card. It's sort of like out of my range of what I normally buy, but that's kind of like, that's more speculative. Every now and then I'll buy a hyped rookie card and just spend a couple $1,000 on one single thing, but it's like, 1% of what I'm buying. But the real, like, and this is, I don't think there's anything that I'm doing that's pure investing other than maybe that. The real crossover for me would be the Gold Prism collection. And that's the 2014, 2018, 2022 Prism World Cup sets. So 2014 Prism World Cup was the first soccer product I ever opened. I would say it's the most important soccer product ever. It's the first real modern soccer set. It has some of the most beautiful Prism cards I think that have ever been made. And it's like, really, like, it's really the first real modern soccer cards ever made. To me, I would put it as the most important soccer product ever made. But I also have that like personal background with those. When that came out in the stores, like, I was hyped. That was the first like real soccer set where I was like, dude, I can like collect soccer cards. And I went and like ripping boxes at $150 retail when they came out. So like I have those memories with it too. But so I'll just give you the update of where I'm at in that set, which is 2014s are stinking hard to find. Like 2014 Prism World Cup cards are way tougher to find than 2012 Prism basketball cards. That product, I think there's more of it sealed still in existence. I think a lot of it was ripped internationally. And I think when a lot of those cards were opened, they were viewed as relatively worthless. So there's probably a lot of them sitting in binders and shoe boxes in like China, to be honest. Yeah, the other thing I like about the Prism World Cup set too is that it's only once every 4 years. So there's that extra level of scarcity built in. I like getting the guys in the international kits instead of their club teams. I think international soccer to me has always been cooler than club soccer. Yeah, so to update you on where I'm at, I think I'm at 92 out of 201 on 2014. And then 2018 and 2022 both have 300 apiece. And I'm at 252 in 2018, and I'm at 252 in 2022. I've been stuck on those numbers for a little bit. I just got a 2014 Xabi Alonso in today that I definitely overpaid for. I paid like over $1,000 for it. Yeah, that's like, if that's, there is one other thing I collect. And I listened to like 15 minutes of your last podcast before I jumped on here. And I think one of you buys them too, which is the Heritage Chrome Black Refractors. I've been trying to do like some of the 2004s of that with the first year of it. Cause to me, that's like one of the coolest parallels ever. It's one of the longest standing parallels that exist. And I mean, I like going for first year stuff when it's those prominent sets. So I have like 10 of them, but I'm keeping an eye out for those as well.
Max, do you respect this collection? Do you respect what Eric collects?
If it's genuine, I respect it.
Hey, I think you did a good job explaining where it's at. It's a spectrum, man. It's a spectrum of long holds versus just like, I don't care what the value is. And I think that's how we all collect.
No, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm just pro fun. And if it's authentic to you, then that's what's appropriate and most important.
Well,
as cliche as it sounds.
If you're wondering if I have fun with it, man, dude, it's like I still get, I just spend an hour on eBay every day at least. I probably check my safe searches 30 times a day. It's like, it's compulsive.
Yeah, I mean, I spend about an hour on eBay every day, but I do it as a dirty evil flipper. So I mean, I'm just.
Hey, dude, you will never see me hating on a flipper or someone that's purely into try and invest.
Yeah, but I will hate on.
And if I find Philly super,
not for that exact reason.
If you find Philly superfractors, you'll buy them and mark them up 20% to me.
Maybe.
Yeah. Hey, I'll pay it.
Only 10 for you.
What's that?
Superfractors.
Only 10% for you.
Oh, perfect, man. That's what a good friend.
Eric, one time, Max, he bought like one of Buster Posey's rarest cards. I really wanted it. Max held it for 3 months as I paid him off in like random Venmo increments for 2 or 3 months, and so Max is. I like Buster Posey.
I think Buster Posey's too cheap.
Catchers, man, that's how it is.
Salvador Perez too.
I would be remiss if we didn't talk about this at least for a second, because this was like the last thing that I would have talked about, at least in some capacity. Less about you personally, more about what's going on in the world, which is Fanatics is getting sued by Panini.
And vice versa.
And vice versa. Who knows? Seems like, all right, I'm going to say what I think happened, and then you guys can come in with your thoughts. But it seems like to me, Fanatics was trying to buy out Panini. Ruben does not want to wait the years out, of seeing what Panini's going to do before he takes over these licenses. He wants to buy them out immediately. He's coming in hot, red hot, being like, whatever, what's the cost? Seems like what they did. And I definitely read your tweet before this, Eric, but I totally believe that the Panini was just like fabricating what their projections were, trying to, gas up their value as much as possible. They were definitely dealing with some other shit on the side of like actually what they think is going to happen. I think this is why Panini as a company is untrustworthy. The lack of pack odds is just like a great representation of like what Panini is as a company to me.
Yeah.
But it seems like they just like were negotiating in bad faith, drew out the whole thing. Fanatics, eventually probably just like, fuck this. This is like, you guys are never actually going to do this. Like, because I was hearing when I was working athletics, I was hearing from like every single industry person. It was like every single person was convinced that Fanatics was going to buy out Panini. And I was like,
yep.
All right.
Everyone was convinced. I heard it from 100 people. Yeah.
When is this going to happen? So the fact that it didn't happen was like, what the fuck? Like, how are this many people wrong about this? So
I'm
when
not
I saw this,
so I didn't hear it.
Like you weren't. Well, I was spewing like fake conspiracy theories on this podcast probably during the time.
Fake conspiracy theories are fun when they're about like cards, and stuff that doesn't matter.
Exactly. But I think that's what happened. It seems like now Panini is, maybe this was their plan all along to like see how much Fanatics would acquire and then try to do this lawsuit. Like I can see like one person having this grand scheme, like this is the end game where we sue Fanatics for monopoly shit. Like, is that I think that could have been the end game at some point for some person, but we are here now. They are getting sued. Am I wrong in what happened? What do you guys think? So
I think Panini got outmaneuvered and outclassed at like every single possible level of business acumen and strategy. And I could be wrong. I'm willing to be wrong on this. But from the limited information that I have here, it does seem to me like Topps is probably not lying when they say that this is a last gasp effort from Panini. It does seem like Fanatics was going to acquire Panini. It does seem like Panini pulled some interesting stunt to make it not happen. Why they went and did that, I'm not totally sure. Maybe it was just, trying to milk as many dollars out of it as they could while they let negotiations drag on. Like, if we let them drag on for 6 more months, we can get another, a couple $100 million in revenue and put that in our pockets, right? So like, I don't know if it was that. If I was at Fanatics right now, and before I say what I would do if I was at Fanatics, I need to call out Fanatics has been like incredible in the way that they've done this. They like went and did the deal sort of like behind Topps back. They went and maneuvered that whole thing. And then they got Topps for like a third of what they were going to IPO for on the open market. And then like PWCC had this whole thing where their loan program went sour. And I'm trying to think what I'm allowed to say here, because I probably know more than I should say. But yeah, no, I'm like, I can't remember who told me what that is allowed to be said and not, but like basically they went in and were like, we're just going to buy this thing. Like, we don't care. We're getting it below market. Like, we don't need to know all the information about everything going on. We're just going to get it. We'll figure it out later. And I'm like, they got Topps at pennies on the dollar. They got PWCC at pennies on the dollar. PWCC, by the way, do they have everything figured out about their business? No, but like their product is beautiful. Like the sort of UX UI of PWCC is probably the best of any platform that there is, like, period. So I think they got an incredible product, and they probably have, $1 billion of assets under management inside the vault, if you just made me like throw a random number on it. So I think they've operated incredibly well. And then they had the whole like Fanatics events announcement like a week before the National. And it's like that rings super loud in everyone's mind when you're at the National and the AC and the Wi-Fi don't work. And when you go to get concessions, like it's a crusty slice of pizza or a hot dog or nothing. Right. So it's like, I think they've operated very, very well. They've had a lot of really strong hires from other places. And so this is like setting the backdrop for like everything that's going on. And then they get to this, like, now we're at today, they've acquired all these different pieces. I think they will still probably go and get a grading company. But as it relates to Panini, if I was them, I'd be doing exactly what they're doing. I'd be like basically giving them the double birds, being like this either you buy them or you destroy them. It's like those are what you want to do if you're Fanatics. And so they wanted to buy them and they were willing to do it and they were going to go do it. But now they just sort of, Panini mucked it up. And so it's time for the Devil Birds to come out. Right. And so like, I think they're doing that quite well. I would also say that what they stand to gain by buying Panini is really only the licenses getting moved up. I think that's the real only thing they stand to gain, like, because I think Panini's best property is Prism. And Prism is super comparable to Topps Chrome. I don't even feel like it would be right to have Prism and Topps Chrome coming out for the same sports league in the same year. I feel like that would just get like a little weird and muck up the prices. And like, is it a black Prism? Is it a super refractor? Do we want a red refractor or a gold Prism? Like, it would just, I feel like it would oversaturate an already oversaturated market. So I'm like, I love Prism. I think Prism is, obviously I love it. Like, I buy it and collect it like crazy, but like, I think Topps Chrome is a very comparable property. I don't think Topps has that super elevated property like NT or Flawless, but then to them, I would just say, go buy Upper Deck and get Exquisite. Exquisite's better anyway. NT has been the sort of brand reputation of NT has been so mucked up by these number 88 non-worn jerseys that like I won't even touch NT. I won't touch NT. Like, it's crazy. Like, the fact that a Justin Herbert 1/1 Shield card and the Shield is not even player worn, and that's going for like $1.8 million is like an absolute joke to me. That might be the worst trading card purchase of all time. Like, I will take the Black Prism 1/1 over that card 10 days out of 10. Like, totally I will. And so I don't think that Panini, or rather Fanatics, stands to gain too much. If they were to do anything, I would say maybe there's a play at moving up the licenses still, but I don't think they should buy Panini. And also, the weird thing about acquiring Panini is you get this whole sticker business too, which, like, I don't think people realize how massive the Panini sticker business is, like, and the sort of brand reputation and equity that they have. It's like, it's almost like when you say like, oh, give me a Kleenex, or like, give me a Frisbee. Like, these are like brand names. It's like in other countries, it's like, oh, like I need to go get like my Paninis. It's not even like go get my stickers. It's like, it's the brand reputation that they've built up is like incredible. And that is a 9-figure a year business. People do not know that that is a 9-figure a year business. And so like, I don't think like Fanatics really wants to be involved in trying to manage that. So even if anything, I would say like, if they were going to buy it, they should probably only spin off the trading card company and let the sticker properties stay under like the Panini Italy management or whatever. But even now, I'm just like, look, if anything, the only thing you should think about doing is moving those licenses forward, which I think would be subject to league approval, but would be absolutely no problem. But then other than that, if I was them, I would go buy Upper Deck, and then I would probably go buy, if you're going to make me buy a grading company, I'd probably, just based on how expensive certain properties are going to be, I'd probably go get CGC or SGC.
CGC seems the most ripe to sell. Max, what are your thoughts though before I ask about whatever? I had a question that I forgot, so I just want to hear you. We're deep in this, Max. What's up?
I think it's fun talking about. Are we live?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, I've had another internet fiasco again. I think it's fun talking about shopping sprees. I'm surprised Beckett hasn't. Oh, I thought we lost Eric for a moment. I'm surprised Beckett hasn't sold yet, as that seems the one most relevant to modern cards. SGC has the massive vintage reputation, while Beckett is very clearly in shambles, as I've talked to Tommy about waiting in there. Beckett's line takes 3 hours, and I'm sitting there, biding my time while I heard the PSA line is giving out free hobby boxes to people that were sitting their lines after the show closed.
Jesus.
Which company do you rather deal with? But yeah, I love War. I think it's fun to follow. Collectors versus Fanatics. It's going to be fun to duke it out. It's always crazy to me when they do some minor partnerships because they're like supposed to be big enemies.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I'm on a shopping spree and I'm buying 2014 World Cup Gold Prisms, I'm also buying Beckett before I buy SGC. I do like the exquisite purchase.
Yeah, I get that. I wonder too, though, if like it's weird for Fanatics to acquire a company that has these other non-trading card properties. Like CGC has comics and video games, and like, does Fanatics really want to get deep in that? And Beckett now has VHS, and it's like, and I guess you could probably spin that off relatively easily. That one's probably way less ingrained in the business than CGC's other properties. But
collectors bought WATA.
Yeah, collectors did buy WATA, but Fanatics to this point has been like pretty exclusively cards. So I'd be interested to see what they do there. But yes, to your point, I do think BGS is ripe for acquisition. I think that everyone like wants to see them do well. Cause like because this was a question that you asked that I'm now remembering I didn't answer, which is like, what did you look at when you were a kid? And I'm like every kid, I had the Beckett monthly subscription, I had the Tough Stuff magazine subscription, and so like people have great memories with Beckett and want it to do well, but they've just like operationally been an absolute disaster. They have some things working for them, like the BGS 10 Black Label is like a real leg up on other grading companies, and I feel like they should lean into that a little bit more. They should probably lean into PSA 10 crossovers a lot more and try and get people to just submit 1,000 PSA 10s and be like, look, it's like $5 a card unless it hits, then we charge you the normal amount, right? Like they should be doing stuff like that. But yes, I do think BGS I would also put them among the list. I probably missed them the first time around. I think that's a good call out.
Well, we gave out some good free marketing advice here. Consulting fees would be through the roof right now. Eric, last thing before you go, you've given us a lot of time. I appreciate that. I appreciate the candidness throughout this whole episode. I think people are going to enjoy this. What the fuck was this card company you were going to start? We haven't dropped any F-bombs this whole episode. What the fuck was that? Are you allowed to talk about this? You're like, what were you doing? What was it going to be? What are you down to talk about?
It was going to be something to compete with Topps and Panini. Like I had an LOI from Floyd Mayweather's team to make cards for the Logan Paul Floyd Mayweather fight, which I thought would have been like sick.
That would have been sick.
Yeah. I don't know. It's like, there was a point where I'm like, man, I do this thing like the VC way. I'm going to get a bunch of money. I'm going to go big. It's going to be crazy. Like there was a point where I was feeling that way. And now I'm kind of like, I'll like put $5,000 in. I'll just like make a card of like a few random people and just like, see what sticks and see what doesn't, and pop up a little Shopify and like do, like autograph cards on demand the same way Leaf does, except it won't be sticker autographs and it'll be, some random fun stuff that I think could be interesting. So like, I still plan to do that. I don't know when exactly it'll roll out. It's, I don't know if anyone in the world has posted more cards on social media than I have. And I would just, part of what I would do, and I feel like I would be good at, is reverse engineering, making cards that would be good for social media rather than sort of like the other way around. And so it's, I have a few ideas of people I want to work with and talent I want to get to sign autographs and things like that. And so, you can be on the lookout for that. I'm not going to push that as like some crazy thing. I don't have like an enormous ambition with it. I kind of just want to make some of the cards that I feel like should be made. And then we'll just, see what happens from there.
I like that you're horny for money.
The verbs, man, or the adjectives.
The verbs.
Eric,
Tommy,
I appreciate you. You got one more question?
No, not more question. We have to end the episode like we always do.
Wait, I'm not ready to end it yet, though. I'm not ready to end it.
We're not either. We have one segment. We end every episode. I'll set this up.
Well, before we do this segment, I have like, and maybe you tell me if we should do it after this segment. I have like a couple questions for you guys.
Oh, ask away.
Yeah, let's do it.
Well, the main ones you sort of like already answered before the show, which is like, I was just curious about your guys' background, what you're into, how you got into all this, the same way that you were curious about it for me. And I won't make you retell those stories to people that have probably already heard them on here. What I'm curious about from you guys, like, obviously you guys are deeply involved in this space. Obviously you guys are passionate about it. I think we share both those things pretty much to a T. I'm curious from your guys' perspective, what type of things do you think would be good to push the hobby forward? And what do you even like view that as? Because I see there's a lot of people that are like, oh, we need like card prices to go up. We need like 10x the size of the hobby. And there's other people that are like, I just want the cards to like, I want my redemptions to like get fulfilled. I want on-card autographs. I want them to be worth less, right? So like, what do you view as what pushes the hobby forward? Is there some metric you use for that? Is it number of collectors? Is it just like sort of anecdotally how much you like the product that's coming out? Is it total amount spent? Is it the high-end market? Like, what do you view as maybe the metrics that really push the hobby forward?
Tommy, would you like to go first? Or would you like me to?
Until it is easier for someone who's never touched a card before to pull a card in a pack and sell that card and put money in their pocket, until it gets easier, until the steps between pulling that card and having the money in your pocket go down by about 10, like 5-fold at least, I think we're capped at how high this can go in general.
So in that answer, you're saying like part of it is you want it to go like you want it to go up and grow. Like is the number of collectors a big sort of metric for you? Is it the value of cards?
It's less about like values and more about just like friction in the market of like until it's easier for people to obtain and get rid of cards, I think we're gonna have issues. So like I'm not as worried about is my PSA 10 Luka Prism base rookie gonna go up in value, and more about like does everyone know where they can buy one and sell one and like trade one, throw shout out whatever Veriswap or whatever, but like just like
So
it's too hard to do it right now. It's like you
totally.
have to have a certain level of knowledge.
I'm with you that it's too hard to do. How much of that do you view as an education problem versus like a product problem? Is it like, oh, we need these companies to innovate and make these like really much more intuitive products and make things much easier? Like you can scan a card and, you know, click a button and it's sold? Or is it like is it more about education? You think it's an even split? Where do you view that?
I think it's I'm gonna give you a bad answer, but it's just like it's hand in hand. Like it's like
Yeah.
If the technology is better, the education doesn't have to be as good. But like I want an educated. I think it's too hard to check eBay solds. I think that the process of getting there is too hard. So if like Card Ladder, I think the dream with Ludex was very much in line with this kind of like we're the tool that you can use if you're someone just opening your first pack of cards, figure out what you have in front of you, figure out where it's being sold, where like how much you could get for it. So I think money is always involved with this. It's like, you know, I think that's part of it. I think I'm a huge supporter of hobby shops. I think, you know, if there was more access points, I think they're getting there. I think Fanatics has that in line of like we need to have more areas where people can buy cards, and you know, I think that there needs to be a little bit more done on like there needs to be more price discrepancies between products. So like a fat pack of Big League shouldn't be $10; it should be $2. And like you should be able to buy a blaster of Big League baseball for like $8 as opposed to $20 or whatever, or $40 at a baseball game.
Totally.
That's just like my first things though. I think there's a lot. I think education. I would love for TCDB to become like an actual Wikipedia of cards as opposed to just a really old timey like Excel spreadsheet.
And some of this like comes down to something too, though, like you're sort of hinting at here, which is not either better, you know, software from like eBay or PWCC or Golden or whoever, and it's not education. It's these manufacturers should make more intuitive products, right? Like I'm totally with you, and I've said it all the time. There should be a much clearer delineation between high-end products and products that are really just meant for kids and for fun, right? And it's like I would tell the people at Fanatics, like run the printers on Top Series 1 and 2. Just like run them like crazy, and whatever you want to do there, like do there. And maybe there's some cards that are high end, but they're just like super hard to hit, right? Like you can get the 1/1 platinum Corbin Carroll base card out of there, but like it's a 1 in a trillion chance, right? And so like I would say, yeah, totally. Like make those distinctions much more clear. There used to be the Topps opening day. That seems like that's the sort of big league product now, which I'm with you, should be like $1 a pack, you know, at retail stores. But yeah, it's interesting. Like the like conversation around access points and hobby shops is interesting. Like I do like that there's access points at Target and Walmart and things like that. But outside of that, I don't view the, like hobby shops as adding this really, really like key element to collecting and to getting people into collecting. Like having come from Supreme World, for example, right? They have like, what is it now? Maybe they have like 15 stores in the world, right? And it's like, but every kid in the world knows how to buy that stuff. They know how to go on StockX, they know how to go on eBay, they know how to go on, you know, whatever website they go on, or go on Supreme and buy it when it comes out. Heck, most of the kids that are botting that stuff and getting the stuff that flips are like 12-year-olds that know how to run these bots and run these crazy software, right? So like, I think that the argument that like kids need to have access to cards, thus hobby shops are incredibly important, is one that like misses me a little bit. I recognize that there's other things that hobby shops add, but I don't know that like that's the thing. And it was one of the things that frustrated me too about people getting like, people be like, oh, like so bad that Target sold out. Like these kids don't know how to like buy. There's no cards available for a good price. Like kids don't know how to buy cards now. It's like kids have a better chance of going on eBay and buying a box than they do on like going to Target and getting their parents to take them there to buy a box, right? So like, I don't know that access for kids is the main issue there. And I would even say that sometimes like making sure that, and Topps/Fanatics is going along these routes, like making sure the hobby shop experience is like a relatively elevated experience now, right? And like making sure like they're open a certain number of hours and there's a certain amount of cleanliness and they have like the right POS system, like all these things to sort of modernize it. Like I think, you know, having there be some level of exclusivity, having there be some level of care for the brand and the brand identity and trying to position it kind of like a Rolex or whatever, as opposed to like, some Oreo or some company that's sort of like fun and not like high end elevated, I think makes a lot of sense. And I think ultimately will like drive kids to want it more. Right. So that's sort of how I view it. I know that like that sort of gets spun as like, like Eric wants all the hobby shops to close and everyone to lose all their money and go out of business. But like, that's a more like sort of nuanced look at how I would sort of view it. But in general, like I totally agree with you about making all that stuff easier. And I would also add that I think a lot of it has become easier. And I think a lot of these companies have innovated. Like Card Ladder existing is great. eBay trying to put a lot of money and marketing and tools into cards is great. And like all these startup companies and VC money is great. And Golden getting a website that gets them into the 21st century is great. And like, all these things and attempts at innovation are awesome. And I do think those things are headed in the right direction.
I'm gonna save the hobby shop conversation for another time, Eric. But I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I don't want to open that whole can of worms.
Yeah, I'm not gonna open it, but I don't know if the Rolex is really what I want for Topps. But Max, I want your answer. You got to answer Eric's question.
Yeah, I think ironically in that how Tommy is very collector centric and is focusing a lot on the corporate and monetization of cards and making sure that gets into the collector's hands. And maybe I'm the more evil, dirty flipper who has the PC at heart, but is always in his existential crisis on how to expand that PC. I think the hobby growing will be best done by have more organic. Whether the organic means authoritative or not is up to your perspective, but more organic content driven by the collector, which ultimately will make it easier to socialize and convene with other collectors. When I was in 2019 and I was 20 and I wanted a dank Luis Severino autograph for my basement, and I figured the best way of doing that would be by buying a trading card, and that re-entered my rabbit hole when I got into it as a teenager and as a kid. But when I was getting into it as an adult and I wanted more sports memorabilia, is by trading cards. The perception then is, why in the world would I ever tell anyone that I'm an adult into trading cards? Now, post Gary Vee, post COVID, the perception is the connotation with trading cards is hype beasts and making money and flipping and the comping lifestyle. I think the ultimate Charizard evolution in its finished form would be collectors being able to convene to other collectors and it just not being this esoteric, strange hobby. I know when I've dug into collecting in the first place, I know there's a hand-in-hand, one-to-one correlation between IQ and collectors, as they see it as something that's important. They're able to hyper-focus, they're able to get it organized. And ultimately, part of why all of us are on social media in the first place, maybe at least at our original genesis and not just our branding accounts, is in order to be able to talk about our collections with other people, and so that other people can understand our collections, where we come from, why we collect, and our purpose. Because there's only so many people that I can talk to about my collection in real life that it has to be. So I think succinctly, more organic peer-to-peer collecting dialogue, it leads to more growth in the hobby, and a metric for determining that is the amount of people in our space and the amount of followers that more organic content has.
The more followers Eric Whiteback has, the better for the hobby. That's what Max is saying here. Precisely. Well, maybe we need Ruben to buy Twitter to create that space. But
the one like last sort of follow-up question I have for you guys as it relates to this, and then we can do your closing segment here, which I'm excited to see what it is. Is like, because I don't so many of my conversations with people that have any critique or any idea, or like these short form written things, and it's just like it's hard to really express nuanced opinions and even tone and stuff over text only, right? So like being here with you guys is like super cool for me, because I'm like, I get two guys that are super involved in this, that are super smart, that know what they're doing, that are care deeply about the industry and are totally on top of what's going on. Like I can just like ask them what they think I should be doing better and how I can improve. And like, if you were in my shoes, like what things would you want? What things are you like, like, I wish he would do that to help like push the hobby forward? Cause like, I'm all ears, and I think we ultimately want the same things. So like, I would love to hear from you guys. Like, what do you think I could do better? Where do you want to see me do things differently?
Max, you want to go?
Yeah.
You want to go first, or you want me to go first?
The first thing that comes to, I mean, really the biggest thing that comes to mind is break the fourth wall. Show that you're a person. Show that you are someone that wants to be in this community. And even if it's just that 1% or less of people that really, really hate you for some weird reason, I think just showing that you aren't just this corporate, authoritative, ex-Golden employee account, and that you just genuinely love collecting, and that you genuinely love collecting without having to throw 5 emojis at it, I think will result in endearment, because ultimately this is one big community. And maybe this isn't the most productive or click conductive method of that will necessarily grow the hobby, but I think it will at least grow the presence of yourself as a hobby personality and not just this big individual who is using the hobby as a vehicle.
That makes sense. So what does that look like practically? Is that just like showing off PC things that I buy? Is that like, getting on camera and having more long form discussions? Like practically, how does that come into play?
I think that's just talking to people. I think that's just looking at someone else's collection and doing a not just, oh, sick card, but trying to immerse yourself as being one of us,
Go to some shows, maybe. I would say my main thing.
That's what I would do, because I speak off what I do, and that is my main source of, for lack of a better word, branding or engagement or whatever. It's that I talk to a lot of people, and it's genuine. It's not just for clicks. And I think, I mean, I'm not a brand director. You do you however you want, and there is absolutely no stigma on however you do you. But if I'm just trying to think of names, if the PWCC account or the alt account was genuinely trying to talk to other collectors and not just do a algorithmic friendly picture with a appropriate hashtag and a question phrase prompt in order to get more comments, I think that makes collectors and individuals feel more listened to than just speaking in a corporate echo chamber.
That makes sense to me. And I'm going to dig more deep on this too. Like, I still want to feel like I know exactly what you mean and how to pull that off. Right.
Yeah.
Because like, I do reply to a ton of people. Like I talk with a ton of people on Twitter. Like you are right. I don't go to a ton of shows. Like that is something that I don't do. I feel like the National is really the only can't miss show of the year. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just like, outside of, is there anything practical outside of going to shows or like replying to people, which is like something I try to do already? Like what other practical application do you have for that?
Succinctly, I think it's just breaking the fourth wall in terms of doing. I guess my doing is interacting. I don't want to say being less of an authoritarian. I'm not trying to give you how should Eric Whiteback be Eric Whiteback. I can only speak of how Max DeMarco or how Cards Max feels enjoying other card collectors. And with the thesis ultimately being that someone with whatever following, having this voice or whatever, being a representation of collectors rather than using collecting as a vehicle, ultimately leads to the hobby driving. Pun intended.
Yeah, I don't think Max reads all your tweets, Eric. Just also
no one does. I don't even read all my tweets.
Yeah. No one reads all of my tweets.
Yeah, Max, you tweet at the right amount of hours. I love it. I think I love hearing Max's advice for you, because Max is not a marketing person in general. Exactly. He is a as he is.
But I also like, I recognize too that you are totally on point to say there is some amount of things where it's like, it's okay to try to go viral. There's nothing wrong with that, but you also need to like simultaneously do things that are brand building too. And sometimes those things are the same thing, but sometimes those things are different things, right? Sometimes it's like, hey, like check out this really cool card I bought. I just went to my local hobby shop and got this. Like, it's sick. And I'm like, I know it's not going to reach many people, but it's like brand building and telling people. Yeah.
Look, I'm just pro fun, and I'm pro collecting, and I'm pro hobby. I build a brand for myself as much as I can as well. And if anything, I would turn the tables back of how should I brand myself? Because you are the expert in this space way more than I am in terms of branding and marketing.
Well, our group chat, the group chat that was created for this episode, is not going to die out with this episode. So I definitely have some questions for Eric in the long run, but I'm always a fan of elevating the voices that you think should be elevated. So, if there's certain accounts or people out there that you think it's good for the health and long-term longevity of the hobby, if they have more people reaching their, more people reaching their content or their opinions and thoughts, Just maybe do that 5% more. Now, I'm not saying make that all your stuff, but like I know that you do in some capacity, but just like letting these people know more about who they should be listening to or like where to go for information. I know I'm sure you do that in some capacity, but I think, you know, like when you do your tweets about this card is, you know, this person's card has sold for more than this person's card, maybe throw in every
But that's
once in a
not
while
great.
another extra tweet about, hey, this would be the most valuable card of this person if it were sold, but it never sells because no one wants to give it up. That sort of stuff. I don't know. I think there's a lot unsaid from the sales data. There's more that is said from what is not there than what is there, of like, oh shit, this card has never sold, like, or hasn't sold in 2 decades, or yeah, because it hasn't sold, you know, like I know there's a lot of like Roberto Clemente cards out there that are like could be worth more than anything that has been sold,
Yep.
but they just don't sell. And I think that sort of information, the stories behind these cards that never sell, is often much more interesting than the ones that have sold.
Yeah, definitely. No, I get that. I probably should cover more like what would a BGS 10 Black Label Griffey 89 Upper Deck do, right? Like that's an interesting card to talk about. Or yeah, I mean, even like what would the green Jordan PMG do right now? What are these? I think there's probably 10 LeBron cards better than his RPA to 99, and even maybe better than the 1 to 23, right? There's a lot to dig in there. I totally get that. Yeah, and I should probably lock in on like who are the 5 or 10 hobby voices that I really deeply think should have more audience. And I think one of the funny things was like to Max's point and your point earlier is like some of the people that I would have elevated were the people that are like saying really mean and nasty things about me. And I'm like, catch 20. It's like a weird position for me. Like, I'm not sure what to do, but it's like, yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, there's definitely people I could name that should have a bigger voice. You guys among them. I think like Paul Lesko makes a ton of sense. I think Suze makes a ton of sense. I'm like, I shouldn't even try to list everyone that's on my mind because I'm just going to forget a bunch of people. But yeah, I'm with you. And there's probably things that I can do to like elevate their voices. And where I know with Paul in the past, I've done a few things where I'm like, hey, look, like anything comes up, let me know. And then like I'll tweet it, and then I'll like in the threaded tweet, I'll push everyone to you and say like for the full story, go to Paul. Right. So I'm with you. I think more stuff like that could be good.
Cool. And now 2 hours in. Last eBay buys. This is the part of the episode, Eric, where we talk about
great. Where's my phone?
2 to 3. Sometimes Max goes on a little longer. Maybe talks about some PWCC auction buys if we really are pushing it for time.
But you said I can't talk video games. I think my last 3 buys are video games.
I'll give you 1 video game, and the rest have to be cards. Okay. Max, you wanna show us how it's done here?
Yeah. So just like my real life buying and not my eBay buying, I've been buying a lot of Shohei Ohtani, and I've been buying a lot of Paolo and Chet. 2 of my most recent eBay buys were Bowman's Best Shohei Ohtanis. One was a purple out of 250, and one was a blue out of 150. Both are PSA 9s. I'm going to be a degenerate and try to crack both of them because it's pro fun, and I'm hoping for the best on that. One of them was made with a best offer, and it was automatically paid for upon the acceptance of the offer, which is really nice. And then the seller, I also talked back and forth about whether a blue is more valuable than a green, and I took the position that blues are more valuable. One of the other ones was a Chet Holmgren ticket stub auto out of 7. I bought the variation, which is now
horizontal one. Yeah.
It's horizontal this year and not the vertical. I was trying to buy the vertical and have the pair, but the vertical did double the price of the horizontal, and I did not like that. And then I guess the last one I'll highlight is that I bought a second Josh Giddey downtown rookie. I like him a lot. Most of these are just for the greedy flipping financial grading point in mind. Almost every single one of these Giddey downtowns are showed by China, and if they stop getting relisted, it's because I bought it. And that's a lot of fun.
Shilled by China. I love it.
Yes.
Max, the Godspeed with your modern basketball pursuits.
Yeah, I'm going to get torched.
As always. I feel like we got to end with Eric, so I'll just go. I I had a 2014 Topps Black out of 63 Buster Posey come up. It was a $20 starting auction, which means that this person doesn't know how eBay works if they're starting an
Chroma
auction
paper.
like that. Paper out of 63, 1 out of 63. Had like 4 exclamation marks in the title too. Gotta love it. It had a best offer with the auction, so I was like, "Fuck it, I'm gonna throw him an offer, see if he accepts." Threw him an offer of $40, which is pretty high. I mean, I was paying strong for these. Any Buster Black Flagship, I'm paying pretty strong on.
Those were cool. I like Black Flagship cards.
Yeah, the continuity, it's there. So I got that one. I've been trying to scoop up.
He accepted?
He accepted. Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Spoiler alert. He accepted my offer. It was the first day of the auction too, so this dude clearly needed some cash. So mad respect. I'm glad I could give it to him, and I'm glad I'm getting the card. Been just like watching a lot of 2023 Topps Chrome of the guys that I want for Gold Cups, Max, like Stephen Kwan, Julio, Bobby Witt, those guys, just seeing what they sell for. I did end up kind of not accidentally, but just bought a out of 99 Aqua Refractor Stephen Kwan for $4 shipped. The Aqua Refractors are looking pretty nice this year. So I'm probably going to try to scoop up maybe the Julio because it really looks similar to the jersey he's wearing in the
non-traditional parallel.
Non-traditional parallel, which is pretty rare. Speaking of another non-traditional parallel, Max, or becoming traditional, who knows? I bought a 28. I want to hear, Max, your thoughts on the price that I got this card at, because I don't know. I want to hear what you think. And I don't know if Eric's going to know the market.
Well, how about we do this? How about we say you say what the card is, Max gives a price, and I'll guess higher or lower.
Okay.
All right, I like that. 2018 Topps, and I'll show the camera this card too. 2018 Topps. So we're thinking Shohei Ohtani design, rookie design. We got a Cody Bellinger Mother's Day second year Gold Cup Future Stars out of 50. This was a buy it now. Out of 50. I'll give you the context that the Chris Bryant of the same parallel for the same year, second year from 2016, pink, sold for $46.69 30 minutes before I binned this card. $46.69 for Chris Bryant of the same type of card.
Yeah, that doesn't change it. I'm going to be $35.
I think based on you smashing the bin, you probably paid a little less than that.
Yeah, I paid.
I think it's worth 35, and that would be my price. But knowing Tommy, he goes for the buy at $10 for a card that's $35 for coolness.
That's my game. $18.97. So not bad.
Ooh.
Not bad. I feel very good about that.
I would too.
Yeah, I'm feeling good. So that's going to go in the binder. That'll be good. And now, finally, to close this off, Eric, what are your recent eBay buys?
Okay, let's see if I want to start with a video game. I mean, like, I'm just going to say, like, my last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 were video games. And then it goes a couple cards in a row. 2010 Bowman Chrome, Aroldis Chapman first, orange, true orange to 25.
Graded.
Raw, but well-centered. Looks pretty clean. Back centering is not great, but front centering is pretty nice. And I've gotten away with murder on back centering and gotten 10s before. So
first with the Reds or first with Cuba?
It's with the Reds.
Okay.
So I can show. It's gonna like you got it there.
I have the base of that in a PSA 10, and I thought I could myself.
So I put in what I thought was a relatively low ball bid, and I won it for even a little less. I got that one for $71.75.
That's not bad at all. Potential Hall of Famer.
Yeah, there's a few baseball guys where I just like have safe searches and I can just like read you off a few of them where I'm just like, man, I just feel like these guys are kind of underpriced, and if cool stuff comes up, I'll just bid at auction and see what I hit. But it's like Aroldis Chapman, Hunter Pence, Verlander, Lincecum, Kershaw, guys like that. So
high peaks, big high peaks, maybe.
Yeah, and it's guys like early 2000s guys too that I just am like I think are cool. So I got that, and I'll definitely grade it. I just got it in today. It's probably if you made me guess, I'd say it's probably a 9. Then I bought that 2014 Prism World Cup Gold Xabi Alonso that I just mentioned. It came in today in the eBay Authenticity Guaranteed, and it was like out of the card saver, like totally. And there was like a huge ding in the edge, and I'm like, dude, come on! Like I just paid, I paid over $1,000 for this card, and it's like it's not going to get higher than an 8, and it might get lower. Yeah. But like there it sort of is.
But it's for the set. It's for the set.
It's for the set, so it's okay. But I'm like, thinking about writing eBay a message and just being like, I'm keeping this card, but like, can you give me like help me out here?
Yeah, come on.
And just see what they say. I have a bunch of cards for giveaways, and let's see.
Hasbulla auto giveaway, Eric. Real quick, you
Yep.
gotta address that one. What's going? I don't even know. Someone told me to ask you about.
Someone
that
told you to ask that. So
yeah,
the story is the Hasbulla auto got announced, right? And I'm like, before the product came out, I'm like, I'm going to give one of these away, like this tweet, and you'll be entered. And then the product came out, and like a couple were selling like $1,000. I'm like, this is stupid. These are not gonna last. Like they're not gonna last. So I'm just like, I'm gonna wait like a few weeks and let the price come down, and then I'll buy one and give it away. And then I made a saved search, and like none came up, and none came up, and none came up. And then I just bid like I think there was one that's sort of like 375 or like 400 that I missed. And then like one just came up, and I bid $510 on it, and I lost it. And I'm like, what? So like, yeah, people are like, you don't do like, I've fulfilled every giveaway ever. There's one outstanding giveaway that I still need to buy the card for. And it's like, I've admitted, this is one where people have gotten mad at me, and I've admitted, okay, I had this idea. I thought it would work. Okay, I probably shouldn't give a card away before the product releases, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is another example to your point earlier. Like, so people got mad about it. I've changed my mind. I was wrong. It was an idea I had. I think in theory it was not a terrible idea, but in practice, like if something's just more rare and expensive than what you're anticipating, then it can be hard to fulfill it. So I'm still like, I have my safe search for it. I'm gonna buy one. I'm gonna fulfill it. It'll just be my longest lasting giveaway ever. And people are upset by it, but yeah. So that's the answer to your Hasbulla question. Hasbulla is not in my last three, but I just lost one that I put a too high of a bid in on anyway.
Good lesson to learn though. I appreciate that. All right, what you got to give one video game too. So whatever.
Card let me show this one too. This is like, I was so stoked on this card. $7.62. I think I bid like, am I frozen? Oh, there I am. I got this for $7.62. I think I bid like $500 on it. Cause I'm just like, I'm not losing it. It's the Dave Blaney Ollie's Bargain Outlet. It's like the fire suit my dad did. It's a signed card numbered to 10. And I was just like, yes, I've been looking for these for so long.
That's fine.
Video game. My couple most recent video games, a couple Sealed Roller Coaster Tycoons, a couple random GameCube titles, a couple Modern Warfares, FIFA 06 for Xbox, because I'm just trying to do like a complete FIFA run. Those are way harder to find than you think. And yeah, I bet if we talked for like 3 minutes about video games, which we will do another time, I bet I could totally convince you that video games are like a sick collectible category and one that you should be thinking about.
If I want to buy
you don't need to convince us.
No, but speaking totally, just not asking for a friend or anything. If I want to buy some sealed Halo games and I want to get them encapsulated, how much can I trust eBay traditional auctions? And then where do I send them at what level?
So you'll definitely want to like look pretty closely at the pictures on eBay auctions. A couple of things you're going to want to look out for, like the very obvious things is like holes or rips in the seal. Like you'll want to see a front and back photo of the game. And for Xbox, you'll want to see that security seal on the side. After those things, there's like not many fakes. There's not many reseals. I mean, like, and I think if you get one shipped to you, you'll probably recognize it because most of the fakes aren't that good. Of all the video games I've ever bought, I think I've had like maybe 3 reseals and 1 outright fake. And so I've probably bought like 200 or 300. So in general, it's not that common that's what you're getting. Depending on how expensive the game you buy would determine on what service level you should use. I've typically used WATA to grade video games. It's going to be $50 at the lowest service level. They've occasionally done like discounts to like $40 or something like that. But yeah, it's, I pretty much exclusively buy raw off eBay, get the games in hand, clean them up with like a little all-purpose cleaner, maybe get some Goo Gone, remove some stickers and some security labels, and then pop them in a protective case and ship them off to WATA.
Does anyone care about complete in box?
Yes, that is actually like one of the hottest markets right now. Funny enough, it's
rather than sealed.
Its prices. It doesn't sell for more than sealed, but its prices have like held up better and done better than sealed recently, if that makes sense. Like relatively speaking,
so for older titles, like it's cool.
Yeah, I mean, like you're not going to want to go and get like I don't know, like Burnout for GameCube and like a CIB. Like that's gonna be stupid. This game's like, I don't know, maybe $150 as it is sealed in decent condition. But like if you're going and getting black box NES games, any of the Super Mario Bros. Titles, any stuff like that, like totally there's a big CIB market there. There's gonna be CIB for pretty much every major cardboard box title. There will be like a pretty hot CIB market.
Noted. That's good to know.
Cool. This was fun. Eric, thanks for coming on. I would love to do part 2 again in the future at some point, but we just spent 2 hours and 10 minutes talking to each other. We get along. We're all friends here. We're going to be friends on the timeline. We're going to still poke fun at each other when
you better keep poking fun. If you guys like just pull all punches, I'm going to be like, these guys are fake.
Yeah. The timeline, there's some rules on the timeline, but there aren't a ton of rules. So if we come around with some good-natured chirps, I hope you good-natured chirp us back.
Beautiful. You can count on it.
I just appreciate it. I think people are going to really enjoy this one.
I'll never have to worry about getting blocked.
You don't have, no matter what you say, you don't have to worry about that. Unless you start like doxing my personal address or something, I think we're going to be okay. I haven't had that happen yet, but I shouldn't say that because now someone's going to
you're jinxing yourself right now.
Yeah, but guys, I'll just say to you, look, this was totally a blast. I appreciate you having me. You guys are doing a great job at what you do. I think I said this before you guys went live, but like 59 podcast episodes in and of itself is like a pretty big accomplishment. I know how hard doing content is. I know how much work it is. I feel like I'm often overwhelmed by the amount of work of short form content, but I know long form content is like significantly more work. So I would just say to you guys, like, this was a blast. You guys are cool. You guys are fun. You guys keep it real. You guys do a great job of what you do, and keep it up. And this was just I'm looking forward to like keeping this conversation rolling. I'm sure we'll have the group text now. I'm not sure which of you in the group text is Tommy and which one's Max. I forget. Like I didn't save either of your numbers, so let me know after this. But then we should just stay in touch and stay on top of things together. This is fun.
100%. Max, you always have the last word.
I am not Hobby Genius.
You are not Hobby Jesus.